You're just a downbeat wet blanket, fairly lazy, sloth, champagne guzzling bum.
Transfer fees up. Season tickets up. High prices up. Why the blooming heck are you still up?
Topical sport and debate worth staying awake for. The Two Mics.
All night long.
On Talk Sport.
All night long.
Please do not mention horizontal refreshment.
Look at the light!
I'd like to have an England team that excites the public. I mean, I would like to have a night of passion with Kelly Brook, OK?
What?
But, I mean, anybody can say that. Anybody can say what
Family show this.
Excuse me, anybody can...
I think there's more chance of England winning the World Cup, to be honest. This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics, and of course, it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike and Porky Parry. Very good morning to Mr. Parry.
Yeah, very good morning, Mike. And I'm not going to take any of this baiting that you've already started about Ronald Koeman's off to Barcelona.
Listen, did I not mention this to you last week?
Gobbledygook.
Did I not mention this to you last week? You might remember there was the name of an Italian newspaper that you mocked because it was the story had come from an agent who represents Ronald de Boer because he'd been supposedly thinking he might be moving into Barcelona.
Yeah.
And he said in no uncertain terms, no, Barcelona have already targeted their next manager, and he is Ronald Koeman.
Yes.
So there is substance to the story.
Okay.
It's not just a wild rumour that I've just made up in order to wind you up.
Yeah.
It's a true story.
Well, maybe in 3 or 4 years' time, when the revolution is complete at Everton, we might let him go on to do something else. But at the moment, I can assure you, he is 100%
You really think that if Barcelona
committed.
came for Koeman, he wouldn't go?
Definitely he wouldn't go.
I don't think that's right.
No, he wouldn't go. He wouldn't go. I can promise you, there's no way in the world he would go. He is committed absolutely to the Everton project. He's part of the plan to move to a new ground. He's got a bond of trust with the owners and the amount of money that they're going to plough in.
You don't think he'd like to win the Champions League as a manager?
Yeah, I'm sure he probably would like to win the Champions League as a manager, but he should have the ambition to try and do that at Everton.
Yes, I know, but you've got to be realistic, haven't you?
Well, you'd be realistic and say Leicester won the Premier League title. You know, that was out of the blue.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, they've now got halfway through the Champions League competition
Barcelona are a regular facet of the Champions League.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I'm sorry to say Everton are not.
Yeah.
If he goes to Barcelona, there's a pretty good chance that he will get to a final of the Champions League. There's a pretty good chance that he'll win it.
He's already won the Champions League with Barcelona as a player.
Yes, exactly, but not as a manager.
No, not as a manager. But I mean, to just blandly put all these facts on the table. Oh, this is going to happen. That's going to happen.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying that if Barcelona are said to be interested in Koeman, and if they offer him the job, I'm sure he'll take it. And I don't think that would be disloyal to Everton at all.
Well, I don't think
it's a better job.
I don't think football is that simple, is it? Because to say, Barcelona want Ronald Koeman. If he was offered it, he would take it. It's rubbish.
Well, it isn't rubbish.
Ronald Koeman is committed to an entirely different project in his life at the moment. He's an honourable man. He's also a man with a long-term plan. He's not an old man. He's got time to do other things if he wants to, but he's in English football now and he wants to make his name in English football, and he sees Everton as the right vehicle to do it, so I don't think there's a problem.
Well, I'm not saying there's a problem at all. I'm just saying
you're trying to wind me up and say, he's off to Barcelona.
Not at all. Why would I try and wind you up? I don't need to wind you up. You're already wound up when you show up.
Because of one rogue result, which, let's face it, that's what it is for Barcelona. They very rarely get beaten 4-0.
Well, they got beaten by Bayern Munich, did they not, last year?
Yeah, but not 4-0.
No, but I mean, overall, they got beaten very, very badly. Yeah. I mean, Leon says this tie is not yet over, suggesting that the Barcelona could beat PSG 5-0 at the Nou Camp. It's all possible. Everything is possible.
Everything's possible.
But Luis Enrique is not doing very well at Barcelona. Barcelona are not top of the league. They've just been beaten 4-0 by Paris Saint-Germain, who are not even top of their own league.
Yes.
So things are looking pretty shaky, I would say, for Luis Enrique.
Oh, I would say they are as well, particularly on the continent where managers are dispensed much more rapidly than they are in England, and for much fewer reasons, i.e. you only got to lose about 2 or 3 games and whoosh, you're out. Claudio Ranieri would never have survived, even up to Christmas, if Leicester were a continental team that were carrying a national trophy, a national championship. But that's the way they do it, and the reason why there's such a huge turnover of managers on the continent is because there's only 2 or 3 big clubs, and therefore the same managers just spin around. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Barcelona,
Manchester City,
no,
Chelsea,
not really, and then
Manchester United.
No, I said on the continent.
Yeah, I know, but there's only a few here as well where those managers
but I was
go.
talking about on the continent, then you start mentioning English teams.
Well, no, because I think once again...
you're on the wrong railroad.
No, I'm not on the wrong railroad.
You're not listening.
No, I am listening. The point is that there are only, say, 10 top football management jobs.
It's only about 5 on
Europe.
the continent. AC Milan, Juventus...
Well, there's only about 4 or 5 here.
I've mentioned. Yeah, but we're in one country.
Yeah.
The continent's got 16 different countries. You see what I mean?
There's actually 27 countries in the European Union.
Yes, there certainly are, but there's only 16 who could describe themselves as major footballing nations.
16? You think that many?
Yeah, absolutely.
What are they then?
Sorry?
What are they then?
Well, I'm
16.
going to waste our listeners' time.
16. Well, let's go through it. France, Spain,
waste of time.
Germany.
What we should be talking about
Portugal.
is the number of goals scored in the Championship tonight, which is a record number.
42.
Record number,
Yeah.
42. Absolutely
Incredible.
Fantastic. And, of course, it didn't go the way it might have gone for those challenging at the top.
Well, funny enough, I mean, it went all right for Newcastle in a way, didn't it? Because they're still top.
Yeah.
Brighton perhaps should have taken advantage of that, but didn't.
Yes.
Your friend, Mr. Benitez, wasn't particularly happy, as he never is. But the big news was that good old Who Are You wasn't playing.
No.
And so they remained 5 points away from relegation because I don't think there was too much action below them to trouble them. Do you know what I mean?
He'll played 31 games, though.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. He's 5 points away.
Yes. But he was 5 points away before all the games last night.
Yes, he was indeed.
And he still is.
Situation's very interesting at the top. Just 1 point between Newcastle and Brighton.
Is it too early for me to ask for your predictions of who's coming up?
From the Championship?
Yes.
That would be Newcastle, Brighton,
Yes.
and Leeds United.
Leeds United?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I tell you what, Aston Villa are going to have to be very careful.
What about Huddersfield?
What about them?
Well, I mean, they're third at the moment.
Yeah, but they're not the size of a club to sustain it. Reading, I don't think, will have the steam to get through to the end of the season. Sheffield Wednesday are perpetual bridesmaids. I see the team with the will to get through there as Leeds United.
Wouldn't that be sweet for Gary Monk?
It certainly would. Yeah, getting back in the Premier League. Quite right.
Yes.
I tell you who are flailing around though. Well, two formerly gigantic clubs, both from the West Midlands, Aston Villa and Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah, right.
Thrashing around, Wolves 0, Wigan Athletic 1.
Yes.
And,
great win for Wigan.
And Aston Villa beaten at home by Barnsley.
Yeah.
Barnsley used to be like a sort of fourth division team, while Villa were European champions.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's a bit of a leveler, isn't it?
Well, it is, I suppose. But as you say, the nature of the game is that it changes constantly.
Yes.
And that suddenly you have teams which are doing a lot better than the teams which you thought were brilliant in the old days.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Nottingham Forest is 17th, for heaven's sake.
Nottingham Forest 17th. It's no surprise, is it, that Cloughey's lad didn't take the job? Young man. You know what I mean?
Well, I suppose it's no surprise.
No.
Gaz says this, old Porky sounds like every Southampton fan before they lost Ronald to his side.
Yes, but Ronald left Southampton to go to what was a potentially better situation regarding his immediate future, and he's still in that situation. Southampton are a great club. I've got no problems there. But Everton, with their new investment and their new investor and their new plans for a new ground, are going to return to, the hierarchy of the top six of English football. And Ronald Koeman wanted to be a part of that.
Very few people agree with you, I'm afraid. JPK says Koeman wouldn't go as Porky taking noxious substances.
No.
Everton winning the Champions League or even qualifying. # Moonstruck.
What do you mean?
Well, I think he means that you're out of your tree if you think that Koeman wouldn't go. And Scottish Bull says comparing Everton to Barcelona is like comparing Kelly Brook to Susan Boyle.
Yes, but I'm not
What
comparing...
do you mean Kelly Brook's not such a good singer?
Susan Boyle, yes, I know you mean.
Remember Susan Boyle?
Yes, remember her.
The woman who won Britain's Got Talent.
Yes, I know, yeah.
Voice of an angel.
She's got a fortune now of about, 11 million quid or something, but still lives in the former council house that she bought up in... is it Edinburgh?
She lives out to West Lothian way, I think.
Lothian,
out near Livingston.
That's right,
Mark says, Koeman's off to Barcelona in the summer. Just accept it, Porky.
Well, no, I'm sorry, but you see, this is a crazy idea you've put into the heads of some of our...
This is not my idea.
Some of our more feeble-minded listeners.
That's very harsh.
Well, it's not harsh, because I love all our listeners, and I have a deep bond with them. Some of them are strong-minded and willful. Some have their minds feebly warped by your ridiculous suggestions.
I think you're thinking of the Porky tribe now.
No.
Listen, it's not for me to say. All I can tell you is that after we, for the first time in what can only be described as a breakthrough on social media, put out the the Postman Pork on Periscope and Twitter last night. A lot of people studied it today and found it astonishing that at the end of it, as we went to the commercial break, you were sitting there studying your own book.
Yes, I was,
Rooney Tunes. And people said it looked as if you were reading it for the first time.
No, I wasn't reading it for the first time.
What were you reading?
Well, what I was most proud about in that book were the cartoons that I commissioned.
Commissioned?
Yeah.
Why did you commission them?
Well, because...
Surely the publisher would have commissioned them.
No, it was my idea. It was a brilliant idea.
Well, did you pay the cartoonist?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Well, surely the publisher should have taken it.
No, I did that. I went and saw him personally, and I drew a few sort of images of Rooney and said, this is the sort of thing I want. But he was a professional cartoonist.
I see.
I found him in what used to be Punch magazine, okay?
What was his name?
I don't know.
I don't know.
No.
How much did he pay him?
I paid him £100 a cartoon.
Is that all?
And we used 10. Yes, that's right. Yeah,
that's not much.
And when you get, by the way, people out there has been a huge revival in demand for Rooney Tunes. By the way,
has there?
Since
when?
Well, since Wayne Rooney started breaking all records, for goal scoring appearances.
Right. Well, I've told you should update it and do a new edition.
All that kind of stuff. Well, if I've got time, I will. But there's been a huge upsurge in it. It's now in huge demand. But when you get it...
It's up to 2p now on Amazon.
I think when you get it, because obviously you'll all be rushing out to buy one, I think what you'll find most agreeable and perhaps quite amusing are the cartoons that were used to illustrate Wayne Rooney as the world's first billionaire footballer. As a
seen the time, by the way.
As a boy who's brighter than Einstein. We've got a cartoon of Wayne Rooney and Einstein, and you'll find it a great read. Believe me,
it's great to put cartoons in when you can't get photographs to back up your ridiculous arguments. But that's another story. Because this is all turning into a bit of an anti-Porky start.
No,
it's
not. No,
I don't want it to be that.
Me at all.
I don't want it to be that.
No, it's not.
Lots of people are having a go at you. I'm going to put a stop to it.
No.
This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down, when you're strange.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Coming up a little bit later on this hour, Mark Donaldson's going to join us. We'll get his view on what Barcelona are going to do.
Indeed.
If they do decide to get rid of Luis Enrique. And, of course, on the big game tonight, live on Talk Sport, Bayern Munich against Arsenal, where an awful lot of the back pages are saying, we will end our Bayern curse. And we will rewrite history, says Arsene Wenger.
Well, they might, because they're not that impressive this season, are they, Bayern Munich?
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, they're still top of their own league, which is what you can say for Arsenal.
Well, I think that what happens is, when you play in a sort of one-team league, which is basically what Germany is, you lose your edge.
Well, they weren't top of the league for the beginning of the season, though, were they?
No, but I mean, they just move up the gears, don't they, as the season sort of goes on, and will eventually end up winning the Bundesliga title like they always do.
Yes.
And I think when you play in that sort of atmosphere, I do think you lose your edge, and that's why, it's better to play in England, where every week you're playing against a competitive team. That's what keeps players on their edge. A bit like you, really. You lose your edge occasionally.
You think I lose my edge?
Yes.
Yeah, but even if I lost my edge would still be way, way above yours.
No, it wouldn't.
How about this from Evans, who says, Koeman was at a project at Southampton. He jumped ship. He will do it again at Everton. Yes. Chris says, tell Porky Everton will lose Koeman and will likely get Roy Hodgson as his replacement. And Dickie says, Koeman is committed to the Everton project. Yeah. You know who else thought he was committed to their project? Southampton. And my father always used to say, judge a man about what he's going to do in the future by what he's done in the past.
Yes.
And people don't change.
That's a bit of genius from your...
Leopards do not change their spots.
From your nutty old fellow, was it?
Yeah, well, it was a bit of genius from him, actually. He wasn't nutty. He was very perspicacious. And what he said was that if a guy has been in some way willing to jump ship in the past, he will be more than likely to jump ship in the future.
Well, it depends what you mean by jump ship. If a man's ambitious, which I hope Ronald Koeman is, that's why he came to Everton, then I don't blame anybody for trying to advance their career.
Well, then you won't blame him for going to Barcelona, which would be technically advancing his career.
I wouldn't blame him if he went, but I know he won't go, because that's not the plan at Everton. We wouldn't have taken him on if we thought that he was going to be, using Everton as a stepping stone to something else. We know that he's not, and we know that he's there in the long term. Well, and that I can assure you. And anybody who wants to go out and bet that he's going to be Barcelona manager by the start of next season, can I say this to you? Don't waste your money. The word of the Porkmeister is you will literally be throwing your money down the drain or setting fire to it. Just don't do it.
Red Led says, if Koeman was honourable, why did he leave Southampton? There is no honour in football.
There is honour in football, and you pursue the mantra I've just said, that any man who wants to improve himself and be ambitious about going on in the future can do it with his head held high. That's exactly what Ronald Koeman's done.
Yeah.
But he has given a pledge to Everton that he is there to complete the mission.
Well, he said that at Southampton.
Is to re-establish Everton.
Yeah, but he said that at Southampton.
Yeah, but Southampton are a very good, compact club, but they didn't need re-establishing to become challengers to the Premier League title because they never have been in the past.
Yeah, but Barcelona will feel
that
they need to be re-establishing themselves in the Champions League. If they go out at this stage to PSG, they will be in a crisis because
I totally agree.
Barcelona expect to be at least in the semi-final or the final of the Champions League every year.
I totally agree, and they'll need a new manager.
And they will need a new manager. And
do you know what will happen?
What will happen?
Pep Guardiola will eventually go back to Barcelona.
He may well do.
Of course he will.
I suspect he's more committed to Manchester City.
I don't think he is. Does he look comfortable at Manchester City?
He's starting to look more comfortable, I think.
I don't think he is.
And I think he would rather achieve something there and then go back to Barcelona.
I think he's looking less comfortable at Manchester City. I think the fact that they had one good result at the weekend and he suddenly became...
Well, no, they've had several good results. They're second in the table. They're still in the Champions League. They've got a relatively straightforward tie, you would think, so they're probably likely to be in the quarterfinals. But, he's in a good place.
But when he was going through a run of bad results and snarling at reporters and spitting at, like metaphorically spitting at cameras and being dismissive, shrugging his shoulders, I'm sorry, he's in a very bad place.
No, but as I said to you, I think that was just his Jose Mourinho type tactics to take away from what was going on with the players. There is some bad news for him, though.
You can't handle criticism, that's his problem.
There is. I know, I hate people like that. Yeah. There is some bad news for him, though.
Yes.
Jesus is going to be out for a minimum of 2 months by the looks of it.
I don't think that's terribly bad news. When I saw the boy was injured...
He's been starting ahead of Aguero.
Yeah, but when I saw that the boy was injured, I thought, that could be long-term. Long-term is 3 or 4 months. It's an injury that would take him to the end of the season.
The end of the season, yeah.
2 months isn't bad for a metatarsal. Metatarsals are not what they used to be. Metatarsal is only a broken bone in your toe.
Yeah.
And you can get over that pretty quickly now. So it is unfortunate for the young fella as he was establishing himself, but that's what you've got to put up with in the Premier League, and that's what Pep Guardiola's got to cope with. And anyway, I mean, when you look at who's his replacement going to be? It's not bad having Aguero sitting there, is it, really?
Well, it's not bad.
So it's not a huge problem.
Not bad, but, it's not the same. Brian says this, I can see Bobcat Bob replacing Koeman as the new Everton manager, and he will push the envelope. Wizard says, I bet Pep Guardiola was gutted last summer when he had to go to Manchester City, not Everton. Yeah. And James says, Bayern will tear Arsenal apart. Is Mike Parry willing to put money on it?
Can you imagine Bobcat Bob going to Merseyside and you'd have, hey, Bob, push that envelope, will ya? Hey,
exactly.
Who's on your radar today, Bob? Hey, Bob!
I don't think Bob's coming back, to be honest.
Yeah,
What's Bob doing, anyway?
Oh, I think he's floating around in America somewhere looking for a job.
Yeah,
I would imagine, yeah.
And he says this, Porky, give Ronnie a signed copy of your book as a leaving gift when he climbs aboard the Do-One bus to Barca this summer.
Yeah, well, I would if he was getting it, but he ain't getting it. Don't worry about that.
Here's somebody with an interesting take. Rob says, I'm sure Barca will appoint a manager that deserves the job, which rules Koeman out straight away.
Pep Guardiola will go back to Barcelona. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Well, he may well do, but he may not go back there as the next manager, is all I'm saying.
Pep Guardiola has illustrated that he has flakish tendencies.
Flakish?
Yes, because any man who takes a, quotes, sabbatical or, quotes, time out...
Well, this is only in your view. This is only in your view.
It is. Anybody who goes off the boil and says, spent a couple of years in New York just relaxing. I mean...
Well, he spent 1 year in New York learning German, actually.
Yeah, OK, 1 year in New York then. And I'm sorry, could you ever see Sir Alex Ferguson or Jose Mourinho voluntarily saying, I'm staying out of my profession for a year?
Well, Jose Mourinho stayed out for quite a while, a couple of times, because he was waiting... Yeah, but he was waiting for the right offer.
Yeah, but that was enforced. What I'm saying is Pep Guardiola literally stepped out of football. He stepped out of the bubble. He stepped out of the profession.
I think that shows a great sort of sensitivity.
I think it shows a flaw in a man who...
But that's because you don't like people taking time off.
No, I don't. Whose commitment to his profession has to be re-evaluated when people start walking away from it,
But I think that's very important to do in your life in order to have a balance between work and everything else.
Yeah.
You need to sometimes take a step back and say, is this actually what I want to be doing?
Well, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't.
Well, he did, actually.
No, he didn't.
I mean, he was going to retire before he finally did.
And then
but he was talked out of it, wasn't he?
Then didn't.
And then he left Manchester United and is now completely retired. He doesn't do anything.
Oh, he does. He does loads. He's an ambassador for Manchester United.
No, but he doesn't actually have a job, does he?
Well, he has a day-to-day commitment to the club. But in 26 years, he didn't take 1 day off. So I think that's the sort of commitment you need to run a top club and win Champions Leagues.
Well, that may well be.
And I don't see Pep being in that.
But it is not for everybody.
In that category.
Is that the way you base your life, then? You don't want to take a day off?
No, not necessarily. I think if there's the time and place for everything, but the problem with football managers is that it is a 365-day a year job.
Which is why occasionally you need to take a bit of time.
Because if you're not
a step back,
if you're not in the football season, you are in the transfer window season, and you've got to be on your mettle at all times. Yeah.
Here's one from Nigel. He says, so it's fair to say Huddersfield, Reading, and Sheffield Wednesday are to get promoted. # Porky Jinx.
No, that's just my valuation. I'm not asking anybody else to sign up to that particular theory, but I think you'll find when it comes towards the end of the season, I will not be very far off.
What about this from Jez, who says Spurs need to worry as Barcelona will steal their manager? Which is another possibility.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I do think that's a possibility.
Now, why would he leave Spurs, who are in the top 4, in order to go to Barcelona?
Well,
if you think that Koeman wouldn't leave Everton.
Well, first of all, he's continental, so they have this great image and vision.
He's continental?
Yes.
What does that mean?
He thinks continentally.
Continentally from where?
What?
What do you mean continentally?
What are you on about?
Well, which continent are you talking about?
Well, look, South America and Europe are similar. South America and European continent.
I've never heard someone
from
South America be called continental.
Well, don't you know that the influence of architecture in South America is almost entirely from Madrid and Spain?
I do know that.
So they have a huge,
it's still a
huge
completely
bond
different
together,
part of the world,
right? In most of South America. I can inform you, they speak the same language as a lot of Europe, i.e. Spanish.
So if you're European...
In the rest of South America, they speak Portuguese.
So if you're European or South American, you are continental.
Well, you have the continental influence, because obviously the reason that South America exists today is because of the conquistador, right, who got over there...
Cortez the killer you're talking about?
Well, you know...
He went a bit further north than Argentina.
No, they went over there and massacred a few tribes.
Well, they infected them all with syphilis.
Yeah, they did, actually. That's how they wiped out the
So
Aztecs,
what you're saying is continental
the
managers are more flighty, that's what you're saying?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Well, what's Ronald Koeman?
Ronald Koeman is not continental, he's Dutch.
Dutch?
Yes.
And how is he not continental?
Because
Do you mean Hispanic when you say continental?
No. The continental shelf, in my view, is Spain, Italy, France, Portugal, but not Germany and Holland.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're from Germany or Holland, you're not continental?
No,
even though you're on the continent?
Well, you are landmass-wise, you're on the continent, but thinking-wise, you are Teutonic, or you are Nederland.
You mean Flemish?
No,
What
Netherlands.
about the Belgians? What are they?
Belgique.
Yeah, but are they continental?
No, they're attached to Nederlandelen.
Nederlandelen?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
We may come back to this.
No, I mean, they think like Dutch people, because most Belgian people want to be Dutch.
Do they?
Like most Portuguese people want to be Spanish.
I don't think that's true.
And most Austrian people want to be German. I mean, these are
absolutely wrong.
No, there are these sort of hierarchies of patriotism.
What about the Swiss? What are they?
Well, the Swiss are neutral and always have been.
Not continental?
No, not in my view. No,
Scandinavian?
No, they are pseudo-Scandinavian.
Are they?
Yeah, but they're not Scandinavian.
Right, okay.
But I don't know why we're talking about the geography of the landmass of Europe. What's that got to do with it?
Well, because I'm trying to work out the mindset of all of these various managers who are working in the Premier League.
I can tell you that, and I've just tried to explain it to you.
Okay.
But, as usual, you go on and on and on. I can explain to most people in, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
To you, I've got to go on explain it in 5 or 6 minutes.
That's the show.
You're too dense to take it in.
This is Talk Sport.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
Pyon-gyan.
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 This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up later on, it's Ask Porky live on Facebook. So get yourself onto Facebook and log yourself in if you haven't done it already. We had a very, very big turnout for the Porky quiz.
We certainly did.
Last week, about 17,000.
Yeah, really
which
good.
was absolutely and utterly terrific.
Smashing.
Now, this is not, of course, by any means a reason to say anything amusing about what's happened in North Korea, but there's been a very, very interesting story, hasn't there?
In Pyon-gyan.
In Pyon-gyan, at the airport.
Yeah.
Of all places.
See, now the North Korean leader is Kim Jong-un. Right?
That's him.
Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
And Kim Jong-un is a difficult man to get on with.
He's not an easy man.
He's got a half-brother.
Yeah.
And the old half-brother...
half-baked.
Well, I don't know if he's a half-baked, but he looks like a half-baked because the only picture the West have got of him, he's wearing a Peaky Blinders hat.
He looks a bit like you, actually. Some people said on Twitter.
Don't be ridiculous. But he looks like a cheery sort of a chap, you know. So one suspects whether or not he's one of these people behind the sort of Pyon-gyan curtain who takes to the whiskey in large quantities because they, the upper echelons.
Well, he was quite fond of reform in North Korea, which basically means he'd like there be some more alcohol on sale.
Yeah, and loose women. You know, that's because he apparently is the son of a South Korean-born actress who is believed to have been a mistress of the former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, who, of course, is father to the current leader, Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
So he's got a bit of a checkered background. But
well,
anyway,
was he not like the beloved leader or the dear leader?
He was the dear leader.
He was the dear leader.
He was the dear leader, and when he died, what they did is the Secret Service went touring round Pyongyang, the capital, and if they saw people not weeping heavily enough, they would immediately arrest them and take them to a labour camp and flog them almost to death for not crying enough when the leader died.
Shocking,
That's the sort of place it is. Yeah. But anyway, I think what you'll find is that old Kim Jong-nam, for he is the half-brother.
He's the half-brother,
Kim Jong-nam has in some way upset the great leader, who is Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
And at the Pyongyang International...
But the story itself is about how he appears to have been assassinated, right?
Well, I'm just about to tell you. At Pyongyang International Airport today... he suddenly got sprayed with a mystery fluid by two apparent female assassinators. Assassins,
Assassinators.
Who then, having not finished him off, decided to inject him with a poison of some sort to finish him off. Yeah. He's writhing around on the floor like that at Pyongyang International Airport.
Why are you making all these noises?
Well, just to give a bit of background.
I can't imagine what Pyongyang International Airport is like. I imagine it's very quiet.
I can't either. Yeah, I should think it is. Yeah. He's then loaded onto a stretcher.
There's not a lot of flights going in and out. Really,
no. He's loaded onto a stretcher, and next thing you know, hospital reports he's cold bread, stale bread. Brown bread,
brown
bread, that's right,
Shocking story, really.
It's a shocking story,
And there doesn't seem to be any official comment coming out of Pyongyang's palace.
No, there's not. It says, a Malaysian official claimed he had been sprayed with a liquid. This is the man who's now no longer, Kim Jong-nam. Sprayed with a liquid. Women used poison needles to kill him and immediately fled the scene in a taxi. But a Malaysian official claimed the liquid sprayed him in a shopping area. He complained of pain, tried to get help at an information counter. They said, push off. So obviously the word had gone around that this was a man not to be helped.
No, exactly.
And that's it.
But the problem is, of course, as well, this now conjures up the image of these female assassins wandering about, working for Kim Jong-un and doing his bidding for him.
Yes, that's right.
Which is quite scary, isn't it?
Yes, it is quite scary indeed, quite scary.
Now, I've got a few more tweets here. It's one from Philip. A metatarsal is hardly a break of your toe. It's your midfoot, and they can be dicey. When did Porky add an MD to his name?
No,
Mike?
A metatarsal is the first bone of the toe that comes from the longer bones down the, what you call the bridge of the foot.
It's the bridge of the foot, so it's all five of the bones in the toes, isn't it?
Well, they're all metatarsals, yes.
That's what I mean.
But only one of them's broken.
Oh, how do you know that?
Well, because he hasn't got a multiple break. He's got a be a hairline fracture of the metatarsal, in my view, if it's only going to take two weeks to get right. You know what I mean?
All right.
Yes.
Here's one from Andy. He says, I'm Costa Rican and chuffed that I'm now officially recognised as continental by the UK.
Well, you could be. I mean, there's, a big continental influence in South America. Look, you've been to South America.
I haven't actually.
Oh, you haven't?
I've never been to South America.
Oh, okay. Well, I
nearly went to South America. I nearly went to Brazil to chase after that guy that robbed the Brinks Mat truck at Heathrow.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Just as I got to Miami,
that's right.
Unfortunately, he got flown to Panama.
You told me.
And so I had to cancel my flight to Brazil.
Well, actually, this is very interesting because I can tell you something about South America, right?
Can you? Okay.
And that is that, for years we have kept an eye on the iron ore price because the world economy...
Well, I told you yesterday it's gone to a record 2-year high.
Yeah, but guess what? Guess what else is going to a record high?
What?
Copper. And guess where copper is being mined?
Copper is being mined in South America.
In one of my favourite places.
Chile.
The Atacama Desert in Chile.
A lot of it comes from there,
Yeah, and I tell you what, they're celebrating like mad because in the Atacama Desert, they are churning out so much copper, and the price of copper worldwide has gone to a high. It's created an economic boom.
Really?
The strike at Escondida. It's Escondida.
Escondida,
The strike at Escondida in Chile, the world's largest copper mine, which is controlled by BHP Billiton, and I think they're the same people who mine the iron ore in Australia.
BHP Billiton, I don't know them.
They're a massive worldwide mining company.
Yeah.
Reporting, record sort of demand and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it sounds really good. It sounds as though copper is now going to buoy up the world economy again.
Well, that's good, because copper had a terrible sort of crash,
yes.
Which is something that I think I might have mentioned to you before.
Yes.
And it was all because of the move from film to digital cameras.
Yes, that's
because
right.
Because copper used to be something that they used a lot of.
That's right.
Or was it silver?
Silver it was.
Actually, that was
silver.
silver, wasn't it?
Silver. Copper has always been quite...
I saw a beautiful piece of copper engineering today, actually, because I had a new boiler put in. The plumber came and took the old boiler away.
Right.
And he took the lagging off it, and it's a magnificent piece of copper engineering, and it really was quite beautiful.
They are. Where demand for copper went down, you're nearly right, it wasn't cameras, it was telephone lines.
Oh, right.
Because we used to transmit words down copper telephone lines, which are very sound indeed,
right.
Until... fibres came along. What are they called?
What?
Optical fibre cables.
Optics, yeah.
And fibre optics, once they were introduced, copper then went out the window completely,
right.
and it is not used anymore.
Is it not still used in electrical plugs, though?
It's used in electrical plugs, but it's also used more and more in providing roofing on buildings around the world. But anyway, there's a revival in it, and that's a good thing. I just thought I'd let you know that, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Dickie G says he was assassinated in Malaysia, not North Korea. Well, that's even more worrying.
Of course it is.
Because that means that Pyon-gyan's female assassins are travelling intercontinental borders.
Absolutely. It means, you're absolutely right. Is there a gang of mad Pyon-gyan killers on the loose?
Yeah.
And are you safe anywhere in the world?
Yeah, I know.
That's what you've got to think about.
Absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
Phil says the Austrians want to be German. Yes, mind, Porky. Cristiano says, Porky, I'm Portuguese and I'd hate to be Spanish, you plank.
Yeah, that's right.
And Sean says, what is Porky on about with his continental theories?
Yeah.
I've never heard so many erroneous statements in one 3-minute rant.
Well, listen, you've got to be able to appreciate the history of how the continent, how Europe and how South America developed. And if you know your history as far back as the conquistadors, El Sebastiano and all that kind of stuff, then you would be able to place yourself in the same position as me. Let's read the official story here. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's half-brother has been assassinated in Kuala Lumpur, as we said. Kim Jong-nam, reportedly murdered by 2 female Pyongyang agents.
Yeah.
How do they know they're Pyongyang agents if they're on the run?
That's another question.
Yeah.
You don't know, do you?
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. We'll be talking about interglobal politics and geopolitical machinations a little bit later on in the show when we go to the White House.
Sorry, the guy who was assassinated, he was off to Macau. So clearly he was off on some gambling and womanising trip, wasn't he?
Well,
to one of the world's flesh
to
pots.
Macau. Well, you may say that.
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly happen.
No.
Anyway, lots more to talk about, including what's going on at Barcelona, what Arsenal are going to do tonight against Bayern Munich. It's time for Mark Donaldson next.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Crazy horses. Crazy horses. Never stop and they never die. They just keep on pumping how they multiply. Crazy horses, will they never halt? If they keep on moving, then it's all up.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Coming up a little bit later on, it's going to be Ask Porky, and it's going to be on Facebook Live, so don't forget to tune in to watch it as well as to listen to it while it goes on. If you haven't ever had a problem solved or a question answered live on air, now's the chance to do it. Look for a Facebook page, The Two Mics, or just go on to Twitter at The Two Mics.
And we are going to actually Facebook it live, aren't we?
That's what I've just said.
Sorry, what did you say?
I said it's going to be on Facebook Live.
Oh, OK, that's what I meant. Yes, good.
Now, let's talk to Mark Donaldson. We're not going to put him on Facebook Live because he's not here.
And also,
so there wouldn't be any point.
But not only that, he's got a very ugly face.
That's not true. That's very harsh.
It wouldn't
good,
actually look good on Facebook.
Good morning to you, Mark. I'm sorry, coming from the old pot and the kettle scenario there. It's not something. What I'd like to ask you, first of all, is what are the chances of Luis Enrique losing his job and Ronald Koeman being appointed the next Barcelona manager?
No, that ain't happening just now, but Porky's right. I mean, there's a reason I was on radio for 15 years, and it's because I've got a face for radio.
No, I was only joking, my friend.
I refute that. You were only hired at Talk 107 to be the sort of male Totty. You don't realise that, do you?
Male Francesco Totti,
yeah, that's right.
Probably more likely.
Yeah, but you've suffered over the last 15 years. All that flab has built up. Anyway, listen, answer this ridiculous question, please. Answer this ridiculous question from old MG. He thinks that Ronald Koeman's going to leave Everton and go to Barcelona. Put him right.
It's not happening. No, I mean, look, for a start, there's a second leg. Barcelona are not coming back because they're going to have to push forward, and I'm sure Paris Saint-Germain, if Barca do leave gaps, will be able to exploit that. And if PSG get 1 in Spain, Barca needs 6. That ain't happening. But you're going to get rid of the coach right now when he's only a point behind. Look, the Champions League is
but hang on, his Champions League record. But his Champions League record with Barcelona isn't good, is it, Mark?
No, it's not, but I'd be asking questions of the players. I'd be asking questions why Messi stood with his hands on his hips pretty much after giving the ball away for the second goal, or the move that led to the second goal. I'd be asking questions as to why Umtiti and Piqué were so poor at the back, and I'd be asking questions as if to say, wait a minute here, Busquets is nearly 30, Iniesta's the wrong side of 30, Suarez is now 30 years old as well. Does he have a plan in place to replace these guys? Rakitic isn't getting any younger. They've got kids like Denis Suarez, who's a good player, but unfortunately for Barca right now, and it's easy just to say, oh, they've been beaten 4-0, why are you panicking, blah, blah, blah. They got beaten 4-0, they're going out of the Champions League, and when are they going to start looking ahead? Because we have been, the three of us and everyone listening and everyone that's watched Barca, we have been so lucky to see such wonderful football over the last 5-10 years under Guardiola and various others. I'm not sure that we will see that again with this set of players.
I think there'll be a call for Guardiola to go back.
I mean, are you two wanting Luis Enrique out right now, or do you think Luis Enrique is going to get the?
Well, you know how
he's on the slippery slope.
You know how these things work.
Yes.
I mean, you're right to say that the players should bear some blame. However, Lionel Messi is the one and only asset that Barcelona want to absolutely and utterly worship and keep and make sure is happy. Right? If he's standing with his hands on his hips and he's not feeling happy at Barcelona, they will do everything they can to make him feel happy. And if that means he's not getting on with Luis Enrique, then he's out the door.
I mean, what I would say is that he's not the only asset. Messi, Suarez and Neymar are the three main assets in attack, but unfortunately Barcelona rely too much on them.
No, but what I'm saying is...
when they don't get the service from Gomez, Busquets and Iniesta, then there's problems.
Yeah, but Mark, what I'm saying is it's not just... and I'm not just talking about... Of course, the three of them as the attacking force are brilliant, and they're all as good as each other, practically. But Messi is Barcelona. I mean, you saw he got himself injured a couple of seasons ago because the manager didn't really have any say as to when he played. He wanted to play every game. He played every game because the management and the directors and the owners of Barcelona are very happy for Messi to do what he wants.
Yeah, you've got your point spot on about the importance of Lionel Messi. Now, the coach of Paris Saint-Germain, Unai Emery, that was the 26th time he'd faced Barcelona yesterday with various clubs in Russia and Spain and various others. And it was only the second time that he'd beaten Barcelona. The first time was with Sevilla, and it was when Messi didn't play. Now, you know the difference when Messi plays and Messi doesn't play for Barcelona, and the stats would back that up. He is very important to them. Now, they get by because they've got enough talent, but defensively, if you're Barcelona, you're one of the best attacking teams in the world. When you've got a team that presses as high as they do, Paris Saint-Germain, and who were as intense as they were, who did not... Basically, in the first half, Lionel Messi did not have one touch of the ball in the Paris Saint-Germain box. That's what Unai Emery knew he had to do. Cut off the source and stop the supply going to Lionel Messi. Why didn't the others step up? Is it too early to say the king is dead, long live the king with Barcelona?
Well, I'll tell you what, Mark, shouldn't we maybe be talking about PSG as much as we're talking about Barcelona? Couldn't this be that, you know, this long-term plan to place PSG among Europe's elite? I know they're trailing in second place in the French league, but is it suddenly coming to fruition? Have they suddenly made a brilliant decision in taking Angel Di Maria from Manchester United? Is it working out for them?
Do you know what? Before this game, people were talking about, not just in Paris, but on Talk Sport, I heard it as well, and I was discussing it as well on ESPN FC. Unai Emery could be under severe pressure. If he gets stumped by Barcelona, they're behind Monaco, as you mentioned, in League One. He could be out of job. That's the world
they just won 4-0.
Yeah, but they're still second to Monaco.
Tonight's
the money
game.
that they've spent. I mean, Nice are only 2 points behind, and they've got that Bampop Balotelli who plays for them as well. I mean,
as he's become known.
Yeah, it's a title race where there's 5 points separating the top three. The money that's been spent by PSG over the years, I mean, okay, they've been unlucky. This is the third time they've faced Barca recently, and they lost the last couple. Even although they beat them at home, they went out on aggregate in 2014. But the inconsistency is the problem, because they're capable of this. They've got great players. When Di Maria can be bothered, he's fantastic. I love Julian Draxler. Edinson Cavani, for me, if he converted all his chances, he'd get 50 goals a season. But he doesn't convert all his chances. He only converts half of them, and that's still a heck of a lot. So the talent they've got, they should be better than they are. They should be more consistent than they are. This should be a regular occurrence for PSG fans to witness this, not a one-off.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. Whether or not they're going to become a force in Europe, I don't know. I don't think you can suddenly build a club into the legend that is Real Madrid, Manchester United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich in a couple of seasons. So I don't think it'll happen.
Well, they've been at it for a while, haven't they? And they've done they've done reasonably well in the coming years.
But France is not a football country anyway.
You just said it was.
No, France is not.
You said it was one of 16 footballing countries in Europe.
It's not a stellar footballing country, and it won't be able to provide the infrastructure fan-wise and, passion-wise that you get in those other countries.
At Paris Saint-Germain's home games, don't
they? But that's the only place you get them. Yeah.
You've got to remember as well, Paris Saint-Germain were only formed in 1970.
That's right.
So they're a newer club. They've had a lot of money put into them. Now, would it surprise you to know that Nasser Al-Khelaifi, who's the chairman, the Qatari businessman, it's going to be 6 years since him and his consortium took over come this summer.
Yes.
They put money in straight from the start. I remember doing Brazilian football when Lucas Moura played over there. They signed him for 50 million euros, and they spent a fortune on other players as well. This isn't something that's just now coming to fruition. This is a team that, for the money they have spent, has underperformed in recent years.
Yes, it has. But as I say, it's fighting against an apathy towards football in France, isn't it?
Well, you go to Paris. I mean, they're a passionate lot. You go to Marseille. I mean, to say that it's not a big sport. I mean, rugby's huge in France.
Exactly.
And so football as well.
Exactly.
But,
well, I mean, they did win the World Cup in 1998.
Yeah, of course they did.
In France,
yeah, I mean,
in their own country.
But rugby is a bigger sport in France.
I'm not sure if that's true.
It is. No, it is, definitely, isn't it, Mark?
You two just argue, and I'll just nod my head and say yes.
So even Mark's getting fed up with you.
No, he's not getting fed
up.
He
is. He's going to threaten not to come on anymore if this carries on.
No, not at all.
Well, all right. Well, there's the question: is rugby a bigger sport in France than football?
I mean, it depends where you go. Toulouse, that area, rugby's huge.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on which area. The Racing Club is a Parisian French rugby team. But I mean, with the national team playing at the Stade de France, I don't know. Your listeners can decide what's bigger. I'll stick with football, but rugby's huge.
Let's talk about Bayern Munich and Arsenal tonight, because the papers are full of Arsene Wenger type stories saying he's going to rewrite history, that they're going to get rid of the Bayern curse. What do you think is going to happen?
I think it'll be closer than a lot of people think. Bayern aren't the same team as they were under Pep Guardiola. I mean, he's got them doing all right. And they're certainly winning the league again, Ancelotti, because their strength right now is not only their players, but their opponents' weaknesses. RB Leipzig have fallen away, as have others in the Bundesliga as well. Their form, it's okay. They were poor at the game at the weekend. They were poor at Ingolstadt. They needed 2 late goals. They're finding a way. Now, if Arsenal can score, I think Arsenal have got a right chance. Even if they lose 2 or 3-1, I still think they've got a right chance, because I just get the feeling that all is not well at Bayern Munich. I mean, Thomas Müller, who's we've spoken about him before in Champions League nights, he was the darling of Bayern. He's not had a good season. He's only got 1 league goal. And if Arsenal can do to Lewandowski what PSG did to Messi, Arsenal have got a chance.
Yeah, but Lewandowski probably is the best striker in the world, isn't he?
He's up there.
Yeah,
he's up there.
Exactly.
15 goals in 20
and also,
league
Arsenal are not coming off a particularly rich vein of form at the moment, are they?
No, they're not.
No, but here's the other thing as well, and it wouldn't surprise me if next week Leicester did something against Sevilla. No one's going to give them a chance, but a lot of teams have put in all their eggs in one basket, and they're playing. But I mean, look, I watched the first half yesterday with Borussia Dortmund and Benfica in Lisbon against Benfica. Dortmund should have been 3-up at half-time if it wasn't for Aubameyang. And they're poor. They lost at Darmstadt at the weekend. So just because teams aren't playing well domestically, you could argue that big players like Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, who's gone missing in recent weeks, this could be their platform, and they might surprise people.
Yeah, okay. And what do you think of the rest of the stuff that's going on next week? Manchester City-Monaco is going to be an interesting game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very stretched out,
Monaco.
Isn't it? By the way, Mark, it's very stretched out this stage of the Champions League, is it? Just having 2 games a week instead of 4. I find it a little bit disconcerting.
You mean 4 games a week instead of 8?
4th year?
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, but they have stretched it out, and they're doing it for money purposes.
Yes, of course.
That's the bottom line. And that's the way it is. The rich are getting richer. If you're in this competition at this stage, then you're going to get absolute fortunes for it. If you're not, you're on the outside looking in.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's bad news all round. Now, I've just been reading about Gareth Southgate in the Telegraph today. He's given them an interview. He's apparently been over in Oregon with the kit sponsors of England, and he's been watching the Portland basketball team training. What's he going to pick up from that?
You can't use your hands in football.
No, apparently not.
Last time, I mean, the Trailblazers aren't exactly setting a trail. Excuse the pun. I mean, back in the day, they had guys like Clyde Drexler and others. But I think you can learn different things from different sports and the way that professional athletes prepare. I mean, it's like anything. Boxers their training is different from different athletes, whatever sport you are. So I don't think it's a case of what you can learn from the kind of training techniques, but there's bound to be certain things, the way that players and training prepare. What would you rather? Would you rather Southgate was over here, maybe trying to find, even if he thinks one thing and gets one thing out of this, or would you rather it was a Hodgson or whoever in the past, an Allardyce, just staying in London and just watching players every weekend and whatever? I think Southgate should be applauded for trying to do something a little bit different.
No, I totally agree, but it does raise the issue again, Mark, of does an England manager have enough to do? You know, you get a full-time job, £3 or £4 million a year, and for months at a time, they have nothing to do in between qualifying games. And then, when they're in charge of the qualifying games, the quality of the opposition is so weak and so poor these days.
Scotland on June the 10th.
Yeah, well, they do, yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's not a qualifying... it is a qualifying game, of course it is.
Yeah, it is,
but the strength of the opposition sometimes is so weak, Scotland accepted, that they don't have a lot of preparation to even do then.
Yeah, no, it's an absolutely shocking state of affairs. Mark, we've got to leave it there, sorry. And many apologies for the bickering that was going on in the background. Well, I was trying to ask you questions, but it's very difficult controlling Porky when he's in one of these moods. 08717 22 3344. We've got loads coming up, including, of course, the Porky quiz, which is going out live on Facebook. And next hour, we're going to be going over to the White House to find out what's going on with the old Trump administration. This is TalkSport. Now, I've got this to read out to you. It doesn't have a name on it, but can you give a big shout-out to the Lincoln City fans who have been queuing up since midnight for Burnley tickets?
Yes.
The ticket office doesn't even open until 1 p.m.
Wow.
Up the mighty imps.
Well done.
That shows great dedication, doesn't it?
Yeah, the manager of Lincoln, Steve somebody, used to be a big mate of mine.
Did he?
Yeah, he was a big defender. And
who did he play for?
I can't remember now. I think it might have been Spurs.
Uh-huh.
Or was it Manchester United?
I'll try and find out who he is.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And his lad, his son, who was 18, was set to have a big career in football, but I don't know what happened. I think he went to Manchester United as a sort of trainee, and I think Chelsea were trying to entice him, or the other way around, something like that. But
Danny
anyway.
Cowley?
No, not Danny Cowley. No, this was back in the...
Well, he's the manager of Lincoln City.
In the mid-90s, this was.
Well, you're saying the manager who used to be in Lincoln
City? Yes,
I
that's right.
think you're talking about the manager currently.
Oh, no, I don't know the current manager.
Well, that was the impression you gave me.
No, I'm sorry. No, I meant the manager in the mid-90s.
Now,
look, there's something I want to raise with you here.
Is that all right?
I think it could be... Hey?
Go on.
Yeah, this could be quite important to a lot of fans, right?
Right.
Now, obviously, now, do you remember our producer, David, who is a Spurs fan?
Do I remember him?
Yes.
I'm looking at him.
Yeah, I know you're looking at him, but
What do you mean, do I remember him?
Do you remember we had a conversation with him last night in which he said that the new Spurs ground is going to be massive compared to the current Spurs ground?
Magnificent.
Because actually, the current Spurs ground is where the middle of the pitch is going to be the new Spurs ground.
Right,
you see what I mean?
Yeah, I'm following you.
And so he was talking about, the magnificence of the new Spurs stadium.
Yeah,
now,
because apparently now when you go to White Hart Lane, you have to walk through what will be the new area, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, I'm reading a report that's going to be on the back of the Times tomorrow morning, which says that's all very well, but considering it's on exactly the same site, are Spurs fans now going to be upset that Spurs are planning to drop the title White Hart Lane.
Well, it's not exactly
gonna have
on the
to
same
go
site.
Well, it is.
I mean,
it is almost.
It's in the same place, if you like.
Yeah, it's almost on the same. It's much closer to the same site than, for instance, the Emirates is to Highbury, even though that was only a street.
Oh no, that's absolutely right.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is, it's not going to be exactly. It's not like Anfield that they're building it up. They're moving it.
Yeah, but it's on the same area, if you see what I mean. The same area. Now, the point is, this is quite interesting because, of course, Spurs ground has never been in White Hart Lane. It's at the end of White Hart Lane, if you see what I mean. Right. It's actually on Tottenham High Road.
Okay.
And White Hart Lane is about 100 yards up on the left, so to speak, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you might say the same about Stamford Bridge, might you?
I don't even know where the Stamford Bridge is.
Well, Stamford Bridge is up in the north of England, isn't it?
Well, there's a lot of Stamford Bridges. There's one in Lincolnshire where a battle was fought.
Well, there isn't one over the London Thames, is there?
There's one
Thames.
There's one in Cheshire, just outside Chester, where another battle was fought.
Right.
But I don't know where the Stamford Bridge on Fulham Road is, but if it's called Stamford Bridge. What I'm saying is, there is quite specifically a road called White Hart Lane.
Yes.
And that ends at Tottenham High Road, then you turn right and you walk about 100 yards and Spurs ground's on the other side.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is...
Is that where you saw Steve, what's his name?
Steve
Sherwood.
Tim Sherwood, sorry.
Yeah,
Tim
but you
Sherwood.
called him Steve, though,
No,
as he was driving out of the players' car park.
No, he was manager of Spurs, and he waved at me as he drove past. Stopped,
and said,
put the
"Hey,
window
Porky."
down. Yeah, and I
then
said,
you said, "Hey, Steve."
No, I said,
yes,
"Hi,
you
Tim."
did.
No, I didn't. Anyway, the point of my story is this. The Tottenham chairman, Daniel Levy, wants to raise, £400 million from the sale of naming rights to pay for this.
Well, that seems sensible, doesn't it?
Very sensible, for this £700 million stadium. But the price for that is going to be that you have to wipe out any reference to White Hart Lane because the new ground will be named very much in the way that Arsenal's ground was named the Emirates. Yeah. Which has been brilliantly successful because now a lot of young people in this country think that Emirates is a football ground, not an airline.
Right.
Brilliant marketing plan, that.
Well, it's not, is it, though? I mean, because if people don't realise it's an airline, then it's actually a terrible marketing plan. Surely the point is that you want people to fly Emirates Airlines because they go to the football ground.
Yeah, brilliant for Arsenal, though.
I mean, certainly there's no doubt that that's what they're known as playing at.
Yeah, I mean, that presumably that sponsorship deal won't last forever.
No.
One of these days that'll run out and it'll be called something else. So it could be called, for instance, Cadbury's Dairy Milk Stadium or something like that.
The Wicked
I have no
Stadium
information on that, by the way.
The Wicked Stadium is one that I don't particularly like.
But it will always be known as the Emirates, won't it? Forever.
Because not forever, but for the foreseeable future.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. So
maybe they could incorporate White Hart Lane into the sponsor's name.
Well, apparently not. Apparently not. The information being published here is that they've got to wipe that off altogether. Okay.
Yeah. Is that an order, though, or is that just what they think they'll have to do?
Well, they think... You see, I think the problem is, and it's not in this story as per se, they reference to it towards the end. I was reading the other day that the big problem that Chelsea, West Ham and Spurs are all going to have is they're all looking for a major sponsor for naming rights for new grounds.
Well, because West Ham is the London Stadium now, which I presume they don't want to keep it as, right? They want to give it to somebody who wants to pay a load of money.
Absolutely.
But it's not going to... Do West Ham fans still refer to it as Upton Park?
No,
probably not.
Of course they don't.
Because it's not in the same place.
It's a mile away. I mean, Spurs ground will always be referred to as White Hart Lane because it's in exactly the same position now. Chelsea will always be referred to as Stamford Bridge because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But the naming rights issue means that there's a huge competition between three of the biggest clubs in this country to get a guy or an organisation or a corporation that's got 400 million quid to spare to put their name onto a stadium. So that is a really competitive situation.
And also, has there not always been a sort of question mark over the way that these things are done? Because traditionally, for example, the naming rights and the money that comes from it was a way of getting around the financial fair play rules, wasn't it? It was a way of saying...
It certainly was at the Etihad.
We can bring some money in, which is not actually directly proportional to, the revenue of the club.
No, I totally agree with you. Certainly at the Etihad, that was one of the...
And so it might even come to an end at some point.
Well, maybe it will. I don't know. But, for instance, it says Chelsea's former chief executive, Ron Goulet, made the retention of Stamford Bridge a key condition when they began discussions in 2009 to acquire naming rights. Newcastle United's brief rebranding of their ground as the sportsdirect.com in the 2009-10 season, most high-profile example of a fusion of history and commerce in English football, which went wrong. And it says Tottenham, who have spoken to more than 300 companies about possible partnerships, are taking a more pragmatic approach on the basis that retaining references to White Hart Lane, this is to answer your question, would adversely affect the value of any naming rights deal.
Right.
The club do not have a benefactor such as Roman Abramovich willing to underwrite the cost of their stadium, and therefore view naming rights as one of 3 revenue streams underpinning their new project.
Right. So, I mean, it could be the end of White Hart Lane, but I suppose like St James Park, I dare say the fans will always call it White Hart Lane because they're still going effectively to White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
I mean, West Ham fans can't do that because they're not going to Upton Park.
No, that's absolutely. You're absolutely right. So when Goodison Park is vacated and Everton eventually get
presumably it won't be called Goodison Park in the new place.
I can't see how it can be because again, Everton will need naming rights. Right now, Everton are not based in London, obviously. Whether or not there's a company which is more biased towards the northwest, which Everton.
What about that company you mentioned the other day that bought the Liver building?
The Liver building, yeah, that's a good idea.
Bought by somebody?
It was bought by a company owned by...
Well, what about the Chang people?
Hang on, the Chang people from Thailand.
Yeah, but they're the sponsors of the shirts, aren't they?
Yeah, they are indeed.
Maybe they maybe call it the Chang Stadium.
Who knows? They might be talking about that already. But I'm trying to remember who bought the Liver building. Was it a load of guys from...
I thought they were Americans,
China.
weren't they?
No, it wasn't American or China. I'll find out. I'll find out and let you know.
Okay.
But I mean, yeah, it's that sort of thing. But you see, that's interesting because, as far as I know, Anfield has not had a branding rights name, has it?
No, not to
I mean,
not
it's
my
still
knowledge.
Anfield.
It's still Anfield. Well, they call it This is Anfield.
This is Anfield.
I think a lot of
Liverpool
fans would not want that to change.
No, they wouldn't. But if it was an injection of 250 or 300 million pounds, they would probably bite their lip.
I'm not sure.
I think you'd have to.
I mean, some people do have, some moral judgment in these things.
Yes, they do.
Money doesn't change everything. Just getting 300 million quid for the naming of a stadium which has been iconic in world football isn't necessarily going to make any difference.
Well, you could be right about that. Whereas for Everton, of course, they're moving to a new site. It's not that far away. I think it's about 2 miles.
Apparently, the Luxembourg company have bought the Live.
Luxembourg, that's right. Yeah, well, that'll be like a shell company, I suppose,
like
if it's in Luxembourg or something like that, I suppose. I don't know. What do I know about the ins and outs of international property companies?
What, finally you said something true on the show. What do I know?
I'm only a regional landlord of...
regional landlord of what?
A few...
A few? How many?
A few dwellings in...
More than 10?
A few dwellings in the southeast of England.
More than 10? What about up at Orwell Quay? That's not the southeast of England.
Oh, that's right, of course. And actually, neither is places like Glasgow and...
you have a place in Glasgow?
Well, I don't like to go into that.
You never told me that.
Well, it's East Glasgow, actually.
East Glasgow?
Yeah, East Glasgow, yeah.
What do you mean East Glasgow? What's the name of the place?
I don't know. I haven't been there for about 11 years. Cope Bridge?
Is it Lanarkshire?
I've been there.
Right.
And I've seen the place, but I don't know anything else about it. That's all.
Really?
It's as simple
and
as
who
that.
rents it from you?
I don't know, because it's done through a management
What's going to
company.
happen when Scotland gets independence?
They won't. That's not a problem.
Are you sure?
If they did, I'd give it away because it'd be worthless. So that's not a problem.
How about this from, who is it, Alan? Why does Porky always laugh and get all excited when he talks about somebody getting killed or tortured? I find it very strange.
No, that's not true at all.
I think it is strange.
That is completely untrue.
All right, coming up, I'm going to tell you about another drinking ban that's been brought into force. On the top of the Cheltenham one. It's happening in the City of London. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
We'll drink to Lily the pink, the saviour of the human race. For she invented medicinal compound, most efficacious in every case.
Now, there's a song I haven't heard for a long time.
No, I haven't either.
The Scaffold.
That was the 1960s.
Was it?
One of them was Paul McCartney's brother.
Yes, right, Mike McGear.
Mike McGear. Another one was, he's now a resident poet at the John Moores University, I think.
Is he?
What's his name? He looked a bit like
Yes, I know the
Robin
guy you mean.
Gibb.
I know, Roger McGough.
Roger McGough, very good, well done. So it was Mike McGear, Roger Gough, and then there's the third guy.
Yeah.
But they had this one, and the other one they had, which was a number one hit, I think, was Thank You Very Much for the Anfield Iron. Thank you very much for the Anfield Iron. Thank you very much.
I thought it was
Aintree
Iron, wasn't it?
Aintree Iron, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I never knew what that song was about.
Iron. Thank you very, very, very much.
I never knew what it was about.
I think it was like a local folk song made into a pop song or something.
Okay. Now, here's a question for you. You may remember last week we had a very important meeting with one of our contacts in Leadenhall Market.
We certainly did.
Now, Leadenhall Market, a very famous place. It used to be a proper market, and now is no longer, but it's just a sort of a
commercial centre.
Well, it's kind of a drinking establishment. It's full of pubs and restaurants and stuff like that. And apparently, what I didn't know, but the guy that we met told me, They used it in the first Harry Potter film for the street where Harry Potter goes down to buy his wand.
That's right, yeah.
And when he told me that, I immediately saw that was actually true.
Yes.
And it was great. However, we had a meeting with this guy, and we were in one of the pubs there, and the pub started to fill up around about sort of 12:30, I would say. Midday, something like that.
Yeah.
With men only. Only men.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
And it's apparently Leadenhall Market is the local sort of drinking establishment for Lloyd's of London.
Right?
Because the insurance company and the new building, well, I say new, I mean it's relatively new, is just around the corner.
Right.
But do you know that Lloyd's of London, following hot on the heels of Cheltenham saying you can only buy 4 drinks at a time, have completely and utterly banned all of their 800 employees drinking alcohol between the hours of 9 and 5?
Well, so do they go out for lunch still?
They're allowed to go out for a sandwich.
Yes.
And they're certainly allowed to go and get themselves a coffee.
Right.
And they're certainly probably allowed to drink a couple of cans of fizzy drink.
Yes.
But they are not allowed to drink alcohol between the hours of 9 and 5.
Right. So does that mean that they are breathalyzed on the return to work?
They're not breathalyzed, but
so how do their departmental heads know whether they've had a drink or not?
Well, I would guess that maybe it would have to be something that they would judge. Because
Yes.
It says here, if a member of staff were to be caught drinking, the issue would first be taken up with their manager, and it could eventually, after a disciplinary procedure, lead to dismissal.
Right.
So, for example, if you came back from the pub having had a few glasses of wine or a few beers, and they detected alcohol in your breath, perhaps that could be a reason for them to say, "Have you been drinking?" I don't think they're going to go to the extent of following people around.
You know how I'd get around that?
How would you get around it?
I would drink large gin and tonics or lunchtime, maybe 3 or 4.
Right.
Just to,
That'll be 6 units then.
8, maybe 8 units.
8 units.
Just to laugh in the face of these tyrants,
Tyrants.
These social tyrants. I would then chew a bit of chewing gum on the way back to the office, so that when I got back into the office, because 4 large gin and tonics don't affect me at all.
Really?
No.
Why would you drink them then?
Sorry?
Why do you drink them?
Well, they give me inner warmth, but there is no outer recognition of the inner warmth. Do you know what I mean?
What? So nobody knows you're bladdered? Is that
no,
what
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, and I would do it that way. I'd be smarter than the average bear in my consumption, without a shadow of a doubt.
Apparently, the reason that they're doing this, right, is to fall in line with various other industry institutions, right? And the staff at Lloyd's, which include accountants, lawyers, IT specialists, and regulatory experts, are very angry about the ban.
I don't blame
describing
them.
it as heavy-handed. And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone that we saw in that pub, and they were all there probably until well after 3 o'clock.
I would say so.
So they'd been there 2 or 3 hours.
Yep.
Which is a sort of Fleet Street style lunch.
Including
really.
one guy, by the way, who stood at the back with a bottle of red wine on the windowsill and one glass in his hand. And I saw him at least once go to the bar and get himself another bottle.
Well, I don't know about that. I saw him with one bottle, and he was certainly going to drink one bottle all on his own.
Exactly.
At lunchtime.
Yeah.
A nice bottle of claret or something like that. But I mean, the problem is what they're saying is that what they don't want is people making decisions, which are very important decisions, specialising in things like complex risk assessment, sports injuries. I mean, for example, Jesus may be insured by Lloyd's of London.
Yes.
Now that he's going to be out with his metatarsal problem, right?
Yeah.
Cyber attacks on companies. But what they're saying is that the problem is they need to have face-to-face contact with brokers and with underwriters.
Well, what have they been doing for the past 150 years then?
Meeting people in the pub.
Yeah. And, the world hasn't crashed into devastation, fire and rain.
No, but Lloyd's are saying that as a result of several recent incidents, we don't know what they are.
No.
They need to impose this ban on alcohol.
I've never quite understood what Lloyd's is. What is it? It's an insurance brokerage.
It's an insurance underwriters, basically. So what it is that insurance companies go to them and try to get their packaged insurance sort of insured, if you like.
Okay.
So it's where your insurance company goes to get insurance, effectively. So, for example, the big famous things that they do will be to insure famous footballers' legs.
Sure.
They'll insure ships.
They'll
insure
Lloyd's
planes.
of London is where you insure all the ships in the world.
I remember listening to a conversation.
They ring a bell when a ship sinks.
Yeah, I remember a conversation in an airport lounge, actually, I was listening to. There was no sign of any female assassins from North Korea.
Right.
But we're talking about, it was after 9/11, and these 2 insurance guys were talking to each other about whether the incident should be treated as 2 events or 1 event, because the fact was
2 planes.
Because there were 2 towers.
Yeah, and 2 planes.
And would there be 2 events, and would it be insured separately and all that? And it was quite a fascinating discussion, actually. Albeit that it was a tragic incident and everything else.
One of the world's most complicated insurance claims.
Well,
ever.
exactly. But they insure that kind of thing, and every insurance company in the world is insured in some way by Lloyd's.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they offer, they come up with a premium.
Yeah.
How much it's going to cost. They come up with, whatever the deal is, whatever the, a deductible is, all of that.
Yes, yeah.
And so they have to meet people outside, they say, in order to do these deals properly.
They've been doing their business, in pubs and licensed establishments all these years. I can't see now why they want to change. But anyway, listen, one observation is I met a bloke down in a pub in Surrey, in Stockbroker Belt, and he just sort of entered company. He's a bit of a pompous individual, to be honest. And we just got chatting. I said, what do you do then? He said, I work at Lloyd's.
Oh, yeah.
I said, you mean the insurance brokers? He said, Lloyd's, like...
Lloyd's of London.
Yeah,
that's what they're known as.
Yeah, Lloyd's of London. I said, I said, what do you do there then? And he just very dismissively said, I work for the names.
The names, yeah. Those are the people that are the actual sort of owners, if you like, of Lloyd's.
Yeah, well, when he said, I work for the names, what do you mean? Like he's a lackey? Does he make their tea or something like that?
Well, I don't suspect he makes tea.
I work for the names.
No.
He's a very pompous individual. The other guy who was involved in that, who I knew very well, who is tragically no longer with us, Matthew Harding, who was the co-owner of Chelsea Football Club, who made a fortune out of, apparently, reinsurance. And reinsurance is taking on the insurance jobs, which are even too risky for people like Lloyd's of London and all that kind of stuff.
Well, it's one of those areas of the world that we all, outside of it, know very little about.
That's right, absolutely.
But according to a piece that I've got here from the Financial Times, market insiders say despite a general trend away from drinking elsewhere in the city, in Lloyd's and in its environs, it's still popular. In the insurance world, it still goes on more than you might think. There is still a short hours and long lunch culture in some places, and there are stories of brokers sitting in pubs handing out contracts like Jabba the Hutt.
Like Jabba the Hutt, yeah.
I don't think that means in size, but just in terms of just giving people stuff and saying, you can have this one, you can have that one.
It all seems to have gone all right, as I say, for centuries, literally, because that's been around since about the 1650s.
Yeah.
I mean, it all started in coffee shops, didn't it?
Exactly.
In the sort of Fleet Street area. And then moved up Ludgate Hill into what's now the City of London.
I must say, I enjoyed being at Leadenhall Market. I think we should go back for a recce. In a couple of weeks' time to see whether those pubs have actually been emptied of people.
I think you're right, yeah.
Because there was no doubt that all of those people were from the same kind of business. But apparently some insurance companies, like Hiscox, have a policy already that staff are not expected to drink during the working day.
Yeah.
And
as
QBE
I say,
also guides advising staff not to drink.
The thing is, I mean, there'd be spies everywhere, won't there now? So instead of going into those normal bars in Leadenhall Market, I'd have to be smart than the average bear. What I'd do is I'd nip across the road, down into Monument Tube Station, which is very close by.
Oh, what? Not make that terribly long walk down to the bank and underground?
Well, Monument's closer, actually, than Bank Station, which is like a real rabbit warren of tunnels, isn't it?
Well, no, Bank is the closest station.
No, it's not. Monument's closer.
No,
honestly.
Monument is right by London Bridge.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, you've got that wrong.
You know the old... you know the Daily Express building where we went to see our big pal from Channel 5?
Yes.
That is just across the road from Monument Station.
That's right, yeah.
And Leadenhall Market is there.
No, it isn't.
It is.
No.
It is.
It's not. Leadenhall Market's right next to Bank. I was there last week.
Yeah, and I was there with you.
I walked from Bank Station to Leadenhall Market.
So did I, but we nearly got as far as Monument Station.
Which got 2 minutes.
No, honestly. But anyway, it doesn't matter.
I don't know why you're arguing about it.
I'm not arguing about it. But anyway, the point is, what I would do is I would drop down to the underground, go one stop, and then find a watering hole that wasn't going to be infiltrated by spies, and narcs from Lloyd's of London. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then, as I say, I would drink gin and tonic because that doesn't hold on your breath. Chew a bit of chewing gum on the way back and get on with my job.
But that might not stop you from making wild and crazy decisions.
Well,
as
I've never made wild and crazy decisions before in my life.
Are you sure?
After going back to work, having a drink.
Really?
No, never.
All right. How about this from, where are we? From CLC. It says Steve Wicks is the Lincoln manager you're thinking of. Or
Steve Wicks.
Or Steve Thompson.
Steve Wicks.
Steve Wicks.
Steve Wicks.
He said that's Porky's best mate who he doesn't remember his surname.
Yeah, that's right. Steve Wicks. He's the boy.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, well, coming up, we're going to talk to Jared Rizzi. He's over at the White House. We're going to find out what's the fallout from Michael Flynn resigning as the National Security Advisor to Donald Trump and how the first month for the first president, who's not really a politician, has been going.
Yes.
This is TalkSport.
Yes.
On digital radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. Talk Sport.
In a white room with black curtains near the station. Black roof country, no gold pavements, tired starlings. Silver horses ran down moonbeams in
Talk Sport, we are the two mics. Loads more coming up, including, of course, Ask Porky, your chance to get your problem solved live on air, if you have one, whether it could be something to do with getting caught out at work by telling lies, which, of course, happened to Michael Flynn, the general, who was Donald Trump's national security advisor. He had to resign in what was rather a hurried few hours over the course of last weekend. Let's talk to Jared Rizzi from Sirius XM and find out what is going on at the White House. Jared, a very good morning to you. Welcome back.
Well, good morning, and it has just been a crazy 36 hours, essentially, barely even that much, but we've gone essentially from the White House saying that there's full confidence in Michael Flynn to they're evaluating the situation, and, of course, his resignation last night of our time. So it's just been a crazy, tumultuous moment, and for the White House, they're essentially now saying that the counsel's office, the president's attorneys, have said that there's no wrongdoing here, so I'm sure that what is a very tidy package from the administration will not be inspected at all by anybody.
But, of course, the problem is this is real politics now for Donald Trump, isn't it?
Right.
You know, so he's been spending the first month signing executive orders, fighting with federal judges, trying to make things happen and saying that, you know, the mass media is against him and the situation is terrible. He's doing his best. But this is the first time somebody has been caught out in a good old-fashioned lie, by the looks of it, right?
Well, it's certainly the first time that someone's apologized for a lie, which is a big deal in this administration because, frankly, the entire front of the Trump MO is never apologize, always move forward, just smash and grab and just press on, and certainly never admit to it. And what's happened here is essentially the White House is saying that Flynn no longer had the trust of the president or the vice president, specifically because the vice president was kept out of the loop of what Flynn did. What we didn't get to last night or even in the briefing, the White House briefing today, was whether or not the president asked Flynn to do these things, whether or not national security could have been compromised. And while some people may be satisfied by the idea that the White House counsel's office doesn't think there's any wrongdoing, the idea that maybe there might be another investigation, except the fact, of course, that Republicans have majorities in the House and Senate, and they are very much not in pursuit of an investigation at the moment.
Yeah, but Jared, isn't this what we're going to expect now for the next 4 years? Kind of make it up as we go along and react to every situation as it emerges. It's going to be crisis management all the way, isn't it? Because they don't have a plan.
Well, I do think that if Democrats were to take the House in 2018, which is a possibility, if that election were to go and Democrats were to take a majority of seats in the House of Representatives, then what we could see is a renewed appetite for oversight and government investigations. That is not the case right now. But again, if we were to see, and we're only talking about essentially 18 months away, we start this campaign, and in American time, we start that clock in about 6 months. We'll start campaigning in earnest. So, for us, this is something that's very much going on right now. The administration gets another couple of months of proper legislating, and we'll see what they can do. They're still promising an Affordable Care Act, Obamacare repeal and replace. That may not get done if the shiny object still is what's going on, the palace intrigue stories from this administration.
Yeah, and as you say, they're now keen to move on and say that there's nothing to see here and there's no point in there being any further investigation. But if it turns out that, in fact, Michael Flynn lied to the FBI when they questioned him about whether he'd spoken about sanctions with the Russian ambassador when he said he hadn't, then lying to the FBI is a federal crime, isn't it?
Yeah, although there's no indication that that's happened at this point. I don't want to speculate, but what I do want to say is, look, this is not just about Flynn and a lie about a conversation. There is a law that's never been prosecuted in the United States which says that private citizens don't engage in foreign policy, and maybe that could come into play. Certainly Democrats in the House and Senate especially would love to see that happen, but that's probably not going to happen. What is going to happen is that there is now three, essentially, we've got an emerging pattern now. Paul Manafort, Carter Page, now Michael Flynn have all left the Trump inner circle after having connections with Russia. Specifically, Manafort and Flynn. If you look back, these are people in the very tightest orbit of Trump's circle, completely jettisoned after it was realized that they were just too close to the Russian government.
Yeah, what happens in Britain, Jared, as I'm sure you're aware, is that when a cabinet minister gets disgraced and has to be dispensed with, quite often, 18 months later, they're brought back into a more junior role, and then they just suddenly climb back up their greasy pole again. Does that happen in Washington?
Well, usually they end up being lobbyists in the interim. Is that something that you guys...
Yes.
I've heard even Tony Blair's rehabilitating himself over there. Is that really
he's going to have a long way to go,
not with the
believe me.
public, unfortunately, but he's certainly cramming his bank account full of lots and lots of petrodollars.
Yeah, he certainly is. Just on another issue, Gerald, while we've got you here, please, what is the relationship then between the United States and Canada? Because, everybody's banging the drum about our Prime Minister Theresa May being so quick to get across the Atlantic and get into the White House of Donald Trump. Canada have been pretty fast off the mark as well, haven't they?
Well, yeah, if Theresa May, then I think Justin Trudeau will, and that's certainly what he came down from Canada. And earlier this week, we had a East Room of the White House press conference, and the message was very subtle, very Canadian, almost kind of perfectly Canadian, in that he basically said he was essentially like 10 feet from President Trump while he said this. It's not Canada's business to lecture other countries about how to manage their affairs. Well, of course, President Trump's been doing quite a bit of that in office and on the campaign trail. And specifically, the conversation was about refugees and immigrants. And obviously, based on what you guys were just talking about a minute ago, they know that this is the question was literally posed as how does a refugee hugger and extreme vetting get along together? Well, they're going to basically pretend like they don't have any problems and move forward.
And that is, as I said, what real politics is all about, isn't it? You can't just keep slagging everybody off and not talk to anyone that you don't like. So, I mean, in the end, Trump will eventually be sort of shaved and planed down to, the 45th president of the United States, who might not actually be that different, because he's been arguing about how he's going to do something different now with the travel ban, which, of course, he keeps saying isn't a Muslim ban because it's only 7 countries. But what is that to be? Because it seems as though he's not going to win it legally, does he?
Well, it's going to go. This is complicated now because they're essentially fighting it on both fronts. On the one hand, they will be fighting in a lower court on the merits of whether this is something that can be allowed under our Constitution, and that remains to be seen. It looks like pretty positive in terms of the continuing the court, and if it does make it to the Supreme Court, almost certainly the Trump administration would lose. On the other side, they've kind of raised this specter of renewing or reissuing an executive order, basically scrapping the old one, writing a new one, and saying, okay, guys, this is actually what we meant. That's possible, but I mean, the idea of it is kind of falls right on its face, and it really does open, again, I mentioned those midterm elections, really opens Republicans to an issue. Now, remember, 40% of Americans still think that a Muslim ban, an explicit ban on Muslims coming into the country, is something they'd support. So this does have popular support here, but the idea of elected officials going back to their districts and selling it is another matter altogether.
Absolutely. And please tell us, Jared, what sort of policy does President Trump have towards North Korea? Because they're in the news today, because it looks like in Pyon-gyan, an instruction has gone out to rub out, one of the leader's stepbrothers. So
his half-brother, yeah.
His half-brother. So, they launched another missile test just 36 hours ago. They're going to be a rogue state to President Trump, as they have been to previous United States presidents, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess this is less than half a brother now. He's kind of in negative territory. No, this is...
Well, he's in no territory, actually. He's dead.
Right, that's right. Well, he's actually within the territory.
Exactly,
The president was actually tweeting about this earlier today, and I know that you guys must be very excited about the president's Twitter account.
We love his Twitter account,
Yes.
But basically saying that the big problem, the real story, and you know someone's doing well when they're kind of putting their arm around you and begging you to understand the real story. He's talking about this in the context of Flynn as well, saying that, is this how it's going to be? Will there continue to be leaks from my administration? That's what the president was tweeting about this morning, and specifically mentioned North Korea, saying that, will this be happening as ideal on North Korea, etc. Now, that certainly is a particular way of phrasing it, deal on North Korea, but he's referencing this idea that, there was a missile test the other day. We've got this family unpleasantness, and now, the president's got to move forward. He was with, of course, the prime minister of Japan while all that was happening down at the Mar-a-Lago.
He was still shaking hands with him, probably, wasn't he?
Well, he was actually, they were eating dinner on the terrace, and apparently they were managing some logistics while they were talking about it among their staff and among, by the way, paying patrons of the club.
Oh, is that right?
That was a bit of a weird scenario.
Yeah.
There's nothing quite like paying $200,000 a year for the privy of being among the world leaders while they're making decisions about Korea.
Although, to be fair, it's not much of a stretch from what many of these dinners have been like in the past. And it wasn't quite so openly done. So you might argue, well, at least he's getting it all out there in the open so that everybody knows. You want to have dinner with the president, give us some money right up front.
That's right, $10,000 a plate.
Yeah, well, no, $200,000.
Yeah, $200,000 a plate.
And how's the general relationship going with the press? Because obviously last time we spoke, Jared, he hadn't been in very long, and it was all a bit fractious. Is it getting any better?
I think it's continuing to move apace. The White House, the inner circle, basically considers the press the opposition party, and that's been pretty consistently treated on down. I for one, I embrace the idea that we are supposed to be loyal opposition to the ideas of every party, not just this administration or any. But what do you call journalism that doesn't offend anybody? I think that's propaganda.
Yeah.
So we've got this sense that to do our jobs, we need access. The administration is definitely trying to prune and cultivate, and it's a very well-managed garden of what they're trying to do in terms of press access, and there is some resistance to that among the press. We'll see if that trend continues, but right now it seems like they are trying very much. For example, just the other day, the president called on 2 conservative outlets and didn't get a question about Michael Flynn, even though it was obviously the story of the day.
Right.
He called on a Republican blog and or a conservative-leaning blog and a TV affiliate who's got ties to his son-in-law's business.
Right.
So I can't imagine why they didn't ask about Michael Flynn.
And that's not going to stand him in good stead in the long run. And what about, his appointments and his various sort of nominees are all going through reasonably well, it seems. So that side of things isn't terrible, is it?
It's actually a bit slower than normal. In fact, this is the slowest pace of any nominees to a president's cabinet to be confirmed of any president in history. This is, Democrats don't have enough votes to block the nominees.
Yeah, but they're going through, though, nonetheless.
Yeah, they will go through, but that doesn't mean they can't, gripe and moan about it until then.
Right. Okay. So, next month, would you say, what would you give him as a mark out of 10, the Trump administration for his first month in office?
Well, I think, from the president's point of view, he's going out there, he's fulfilling his promises. His poll numbers are kind of down, but continuing. I would say this is for Trump himself. But, of course, you've got all these other things like, a national security advisor, 24 days, basically. That's a very short tenure. Usually they last at least a year or more. Yeah. I would say we're looking at maybe like a C-. This is passing, but certainly not by the seat of the pants.
Yeah, and don't forget about the polls, because he's told us that all the polls that show that his ratings are down are all fake, so we don't really watch those and listen to them.
But you remember that all the polls that say he's doing well, those are good polls.
Yes,
so
of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time. Jared, thank you very much indeed. We'll talk to you again soon, I'm sure. Jared there from Sirius XM telling us about what life is like at the White House under the new Trump regime.
Yeah.
I've got a few tweets for you here.
Yes.
Nigel says this: Everton's new ground could be called the Pyon-gyan Arena, just for Porky.
Yeah, good idea.
And Dave says, if four gin and tonics don't do anything to Porky, how many did he have when he lost his phone in the pub? 12?
No, so that was a bit of a mistake. That was a logistical rearrangement error.
Is that right?
Which I don't believe I was responsible for, but I'm not arguing.
No, of course, absolutely not.
Yeah.
We've got lots more coming up, though, including a story about Domino's Pizza, your favourite pizza chain.
Yes.
Where we sent out a picture yesterday of you carrying 2 on your head. Yes. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Very clever the way the music ties in with the news that we have.
What's that?
There's Domino in that song.
Domino.
It's called Domino.
Was that the singer Domino?
No, Domino's not a singer. That was Fats Domino you're thinking of.
No, I wasn't thinking of Fats Domino. Who was the singer?
Jessie J.
Jessie J.
Yeah.
Now I know her. I think.
Yeah.
Is she? Did she go bald? No, did she shave all her hair off?
She did, yeah.
Very
well remembered.
In sympathy with a young girl who had cancer.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, the weekend she did that, I met her in the boardroom at Tottenham.
Did you?
Yeah, she's a Tottenham fan.
Is she?
Seriously, yeah.
What, with a bald head?
With a bald head, yeah.
What did you say to her?
Well, I didn't know she was. So one of the waitresses who brought me a drink, I said, that lady over there, I said, why is everybody having their picture taken with her? She said, oh, that's Jessie J.
Right.
I said, oh, okay. I said...
Did you have your picture taken with her?
No, I didn't know. Well, I didn't even know she was.
Well, now that we're having a big website launch on Saturday, right? More details coming soon.
Yes.
You start running into famous people.
Yeah.
You should have your picture taken and put it on the website.
Well, I'm not a star effer, if you know what I mean.
What?
You know what I mean?
What?
You know, what these
have you just
people
said?
Are. No, I didn't say it. No.
It's
you
a
know
family
what I mean?
show,
No,
this,
yes,
you know.
I know it's a family show, and that's why I didn't use a bad word. But you know what I mean? You know exactly where I'm coming from.
Well, I do.
Yeah, but
I would never accuse you of that.
No, exactly.
But if you happen to run into Jessie J in the Spurs boardroom and she's doing pictures, you should have a picture done with her.
Well, anyway, I said to this waitress guy, I said, is she like had a few hit records? He said, she's had about 4 number ones. I said, really?
Yeah.
She said, yes.
Price Tag. You know that song?
No, I don't actually. She said she's also been a judge on The Voice or something.
I believe she was, yes.
Was it The Voice
I think
or
that's
one
true.
of them? I said, really?
In fact, I think she shaved her head while she was doing that.
Oh, did she? Yeah. I said she seems to be very successful. Oh, she's very successful. She said she's been here for an hour, she said, and she's never sat down yet from people wanting their picture taken with her.
See, that's a bit tedious.
Yeah, it is a bit, yeah. So I said, oh, nice lady and all that. And I went to talk to her afterwards, but she'd gone, so I, only to say, you know...
Well, you'd probably gone by about the second half, as you usually have when you're at Spurs.
No, not at all.
What were we doing in the boardroom, anyway?
I'd been invited there by a director of Spurs, actually.
Is that right?
Yes.
Because I didn't come to Spurs with you last time, did I?
I don't think you did. And by the way, that game's coming up in a couple of weeks.
I'm not coming to that one either.
You're not coming to that one because you're in America.
I'm going to be in America, yeah.
You go on the Saturday afternoon.
You don't have to give away every single detail of my itinerary.
No, and
so that people can come and rob my house.
And I'm going to Spurs on the.
You don't have to give away every single detail of our lives.
I tell
it's
you
not
what,
required.
Exciting things coming up because
exciting things.
Yeah,
Where have you turned into some kind of Jimmy Durante figure?
Exciting
things are coming up.
Like on Saturday, we're relaunching. No, we're not. We're
not
launching.
We're launching our new
the
website.
Two Mikes website.
Yes.
That's right.
At a secret location yet to be determined.
At a secret location yet to be determined, but it's brilliant.
It's not a party, by the way.
We've been working on it for.
But if you want to come along, that'll be cool.
We've been working on it for the last 6 months, and we're very thrilled. It's brilliant.
Actually, we've only been working on it for about the last 4 weeks, because for the last 6 months, it's been a complete shambles.
Well, we've got it all together, and it's brilliant. We've been working on it for 6 months. Believe me.
Really? You've been working on it for 6 months, and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, listen to this, right?
Yeah.
Domino's, your favourite pizza parlour joint, as seen by your 2-for-1 bog-off offer from the other night.
Yes.
Apparently, have been shocking people on Twitter, right? Because one of their workers was spotted over the weekend in a local supermarket,
right,
buying potato wedges,
yes,
right, which were for £1,
right,
and then selling them in Domino's for something like £3.49 per portion,
right.
So they're literally marking up to 250%.
Well, hang on.
Stuff that is for sale in a normal supermarket, and they're flogging it as if it's their own special brand.
Well, wait a minute. When you buy them in a supermarket, according to this allegation, which
it's not an allegation; it's been admitted by Domino's.
Has it?
Yeah.
Are you buying them raw, and then do you cook? You take them back to Domino's and cook them? Potato wedges.
Well, what do you mean raw?
Well, they have to be cooked, don't they?
Well, it depends. I mean, if they're frozen potato wedges,
yeah,
they might be pre-cooked. If they're, I mean, I haven't given you that particular piece of information.
Well, that's what I mean.
They're frozen. They're frozen wedges. So my bet would be that you might have to fry them.
No, you'd probably have to just warm them up in the oven.
You might just have to warm them up. I don't know. I don't buy frozen wedges.
All right. What's wrong with that then?
So you think that's acceptable?
Well,
you think it's all right for Domino's to say that they sell their own wedges because they're their own
do they
brand?
say they are our own wedges?
Well, you're the expert. You're the man that's in there all the time.
I think all they say is this comes with wedges. I don't think they say they're our own wedges.
Really?
And by the way, Tesco is one of the biggest brand names in this country. So if they're doing potato wedges, they must be of high quality.
Yeah,
so I would say that
wasn't in Tesco's. It was in Asda's, actually.
Asda's, well, they're another very respectable brand in this country, and their potato wedges will be of good quality. So I can't see why anybody is even raising this. It seems to be a perfectly legitimate commercial arrangement to me.
According to Domino's Pizza, a spokeswoman said,
yes.
With a big sporting weekend, very occasionally our stores are in an unfortunate position where some food items may run out.
Yeah.
We do not advocate this as a solution and are investigating. We have rigorous standards where our franchisees buy all food from our approved suppliers to help maintain the high standards customers rightly expect.
That's a non-story to me.
You think that's a non-story?
Yeah.
Well, they don't.
Yeah.
They're investigating it.
Because
they're saying that they expect their franchisees to buy all food from their approved suppliers.
Yeah, but if you
which
run
is
out,
not the local supermarket round the corner.
If you run out because you haven't anticipated demand, or demand's been too great, or it's been too little, then of course you've got to react to it, and you've got to be flexible and versatile.
Thanks to Gavin for letting us know about that story.
Gavin, thanks very much. It's a non-story, mate. To me, that's a perfectly acceptable commercial arrangement. And,
really?
And I admire them for it.
So the next time you go in there and you say, can I have 2 pizzas, please? I want one half with pineapple on and ham, another half with mushroom.
Yes.
Then I want you to give me a second pizza precisely exactly the same way.
Right, yeah.
But just for variety, maybe we'll put one half on the other half, and it will look a little bit different when I open them up.
No.
But before I carry them home, could you just order those for me? And they went, yeah, absolutely right. And then you see the guy running out to the nearest the Tesco's or Asda's, running back in with a couple of frozen pizzas, chucking them in the oven, and putting them in a box and giving them to you. You'd be quite happy.
No, I'd be very unhappy because...
well, that's what they've just done.
No, they haven't. A Domino's pizza is made from sauce. They get the dough and they put everything on it, the ingredients,
that's what I mean.
all that. Potato wedges are a one-off product. You don't actually grow the potatoes, and then manufacture...
Well, they don't grow the tomatoes to make the tomato sauce that goes on the pizza,
You know exactly what I'm saying. You make a pizza up in front of the customer. Potato wedges can come out of a packet. It doesn't really matter.
So you don't care if they do it with everything else as long as they don't do it with the pizza?
No, I don't know where you're coming from on this one, honestly. It's ridiculous.
Why is it ridiculous?
Because they've got potato wedges and they serve them to you.
Yeah.
Do you then go home and say,
let me put it to you this way.
These taste like Asda, these taste like Tesco?
All right, well, say, for example,
non-story.
you went into a McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
And you asked for a portion of chips.
Yes.
And they didn't have any chips. So they went next door to Asda's, bought a load of chips, chucked them in the frying pan.
That would never happen.
Well, why would it never happen?
Because it doesn't. It doesn't
why would
happen
it never
with
happen?
McDonald's. Because it never happens with McDonald's. Because
McDonald's, I've been in McDonald's when they've run out of coffee.
Oh, well, there you go. But
they didn't run next door and get one from Costa and bring it in and pretend it was theirs.
McDonald's are famous for burgers and fries. They're not famous for coffee. If they run out of coffee, who cares? They would never run out of burgers and fries. One incident I had.
I don't understand why you're defending them so much.
Well, because I just think it's a non-story. Potato wedges. Yeah, they're a commercial operation.
People seem to be upset. They say this is not normal procedure and they're investigating it.
It doesn't bother me.
It bothers Domino's.
Well, I'm a consumer of Domino's and of Asda.
Domino's?
Domino's, it doesn't bother me. I tell you, it did happen once.
Go on.
I remember once I was in an Italian restaurant having lunch.
Yeah.
And when we ordered another couple of bottles of the particular wine that we wanted...
Couple?
Yeah, seriously.
Another light lunch before the conference in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. And the guy who's the head waiter kept prevaricating. Oh, it's just getting the wine now, sir.
No.
Just getting the wine.
Do you think they were trying to stop you from drinking any more?
No, they'd sent the youngest member of the staff out to the local supermarket because they'd run out.
Right.
And got us
How
a
many
couple of
bottles had you had already?
About 6. and they'd sent him out to get another couple of bottles. And we saw him running up the road with the bottles because he came the wrong way. He was
And how much were they charging you for these bottles?
About 28 quid.
And how much was he buying them for?
About 7.
And did you object to that?
No.
Why not?
He's providing a service.
I
and
would have
bringing
said
them
to the
table.
guy, I'll tell you what, next time I come, I'll bring my own wine. How about that?
Well, you could have done.
And you could open it for me.
Yeah, but you get generous in situations where you're sort of merged into bladderation.
Yeah.
That's right. Quite right, yeah.
Steve says this, potato wedges. Do we know any food critics who could answer that question?
Yeah.
I can't think of one.
No, I can't think of anybody.
You?
Not anybody we can access instantly, if you see what I mean.
No, exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, coming up, we're going to be going live on Facebook. You know that, don't you?
Great.
Later on in the next hour, because it's time for Ask Porky. We've got some great questions, actually. Many of them relating to matters of the heart.
Yes.
Because it was Valentine's Day yesterday.
You hear me drumming the beat there?
I don't know why you're doing that. You call that drumming a beat?
Just getting a beat
unfortunately,
into the show.
that look of yours, which was completely manic, was not captured by the Facebook Live camera.
Right,
but we may try and do some of that later on.
Okay.
This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. And, of course, there will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Porky Vision tomorrow. We might need to discuss the Porky quiz.
Yes.
Did we discuss the Porky quiz yet? I don't think we have we?
No, I don't think we have, but we'll come up with a verdict definitely between now and tomorrow night's show.
Yes, okay.
Is that okay?
Somebody said to me that we should do one on Cheltenham ahead of Cheltenham, but I think we may have done one on Cheltenham.
I don't think we have.
No?
I don't think
Well, as we get closer to March, perhaps we'll do Cheltenham, shall we?
Well, it's getting pretty close.
Well, it's not that close.
It is.
It's not for another few weeks yet.
Well, no,
It's the week of March the 13th.
It's March the 15th is the Wednesday in that week. That's
Exactly.
right, yeah.
And
yeah.
you know the Friday is also, coincidentally, St.
Patrick's Day. It always is.
So good luck with the old 4 drinks per person.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It always coincides with it. Now, listen, I just want to tell you a couple of things. First of all, I have to pay tribute to the Guardian newspaper for being right on the front foot with the Millwall story.
The Graniad, yes, they have been very good on that, actually.
Latest development.
What is the latest? Tell me.
Let me just read this to you, the first paragraph. In a stunning twist to the Millwall CPO debacle, that's CPO, what does that stand for?
The CPO, the compulsory purchase order.
That's it, yeah. Debacle.
Debacle.
Yeah, debacle. Newly released documents show that Lewisham Council and its offshore registered developer, Renewal, admitted making a series of false claims on funding pledges, which it described as jumping the gun while securing a £20 million grant from the Mayor of London to implement the land grab scheme.
So would you say that at this point this is effectively a Porky U-turn then? So you've gone from saying that all the Millwall fans should be happy to move to North Kent because that is the way forward. You're now going to try and say that you're now in support of them staying where they are.
All I said was don't be blinkered to the possibility of opportunities arising in any situation. I, however, did not support the idea of closing down the Den and removing Millwall elsewhere.
You said it looked like a breeze block. You said it was horrible.
Anyway, just very quickly, the news comes on the same day that the Mayor of Lewisham, a man called Sir Steve Bullock...
Sir Steve Bullock?
Yeah, that's him, yeah.
They've certainly been talking a load of that.
That's right, yeah. Aptly named Sir Steve Bullock, the Mayor of Lewisham, has quit his position as a director of the Sporting Foundation at the heart of the scheme.
Is that right?
Well, I mean, this is getting very murky.
So once again, I've been proved entirely correct in my sense of outrage at the time, which was that Millwall fans deserved to be treated better than that, and that Lewisham Council had no business to do what they were doing.
Well, you say that. Now, listen, the other great story, of course, which is going to emerge and smash all around us tomorrow, is this incredible interview with the
England manager.
The England manager, Gareth Southgate, all over the front and pages.
What was it, Gary, as Jose Mourinho referred to him as?
Gary. Yeah. Gareth Southgate. Yeah. This is in the Telegraph, by the way, pages 1, 2, and 3 of the Telegraph Sports Pullout. Exclusive interview. We're 13th in the world, and guess what Gareth says about that?
What does he say?
That is not good enough.
Well, he's right about that, isn't it? How's he going to make us 12th?
Gareth Southgate reveals his plan to revitalise England and what he really learned from Eddie Jones.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's 2 pages of what I can only call, guff.
I have to agree with you. There was absolutely nothing in the interview. I mean, it's done by Jim White, who's a good friend of ours from the Telegraph.
That's right.
A very nice man and a very good journalist. But, I mean, he has obviously struggled to get anything out of Southgate of any merit whatsoever.
This is not Jim White, who is a broadcaster on Sky and at TalkSport.
No, of course not.
This is Jim White, the newspaper journalist.
That's right.
Also a Scotsman, I think. But
I don't think he is, actually.
Is he not? No, he's not a Scotsman.
No, I don't think he is.
But very able, and I'm afraid he has sat down with him for hours, and the best line he's got is Gareth says, 13th ranking in the world is not good enough.
Yes.
So there you go.
He also talks towards the end of the piece about how he went to the Portland, and that's why I asked Mark Donaldson about it. He went to the Portland basketball game.
That's right.
Because he thinks there's lots of things he could learn from basketball.
That's right.
And he's been to the rugby camp to see what he could learn from the rugby camp.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it doesn't really instill you with any great sort of feeling of excitement, any great feeling of confidence.
There's another astonishing revelation here from Gareth Southgate. Mr. Southgate, or Gareth, or call him what you want, rejects claims that he's too nice to succeed and insists he will make ruthless calls where necessary.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go.
He also says that he doesn't believe in putting people in the team on reputation only.
No, that's right.
And that form will always be the watchword for him.
And then says it's not a question about just working hard. You've got to work smartly. And I watch basketball and all other sports because you can always learn something from the coaching techniques of those sports. I'll tell you, I fell asleep after the third paragraph.
I know.
And that's not Jim White's fault, by the way, the journo. It's I think you'll find the England manager is not very giving in those sort of situations.
Well, it's just, I mean, imagine going off to Oregon, and I dare say that the trip was all paid for by the sponsors of the kit for England and all that.
Yes.
But imagine if you, I mean, in your day at the FA, you must have had to spend some time with some boring people having dinner.
Oh, yeah, terribly boring.
Out for the evening.
Yeah.
And you trying to desperately sneak away to the bar to get yourself some gin and tonics down your throat.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, imagine having to sit with Gareth Southgate and have dinner every night.
Oh, God, yeah.
Pep Southgate, giving you the benefit of his, immense knowledge of all sorts of great sporting achievement.
I really get irritated by people who are in positions of responsibility but refuse to, give any opinions, to refuse to say anything even slightly dangerous or slightly challenging or slightly, mind-puzzling or something like that. And, just the bland line. I mean, to say we're 13th in the world, and frankly, that is not good enough.
Oh, yeah.
Why would you bother saying that?
I know.
It's a statement of the obvious. A 5-year-old could have told you that.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not somebody who's being paid $3 million a year.
Exactly, yeah.
Now, I've got some good news for you.
Oh, yes?
In the property scenario.
I like good news,
because you're always looking for opportunities, aren't you?
Certainly am.
Do you know where one of the fastest growing property hotspots in Britain is right now?
It's north of the border, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
It's the Shetland Islands.
Shetland Islands, there you
Shetland
go.
Islands is a property hotspot. Values have shot up 3 times faster, right?
Yeah.
Than in London.
Well, it doesn't surprise me, and I think a lot of that might have come from that TV programme called Shetland, because that was a...
Hang on, that was all filmed in Glasgow.
Well, no, they filmed a lot of it on location in Shetland.
Well, I thought it was all about Glasgow, though.
Well, it veered between Glasgow and Shetland. The basic plot was that a guy who was on the protection list had been sent to the Shetlands to hide. And as it emerged during the show, the worst place you can send somebody to hide them when a bunch of criminals are looking for them is on the Shetlands, because it's such a tight community and everybody knows everybody else. And if a stranger arrives in town, you've got a problem.
Yeah.
But it did show, even if they didn't film there, they certainly had footage from there, these lovely, beautiful cottages and buildings, multicoloured, on the shoreline, and the towns in the Shetlands and all that kind of stuff. And it's a sort of place where you and I would probably get a great deal out of for 3 or 4 days, but would be driven insensible with boredom if we ever lived there permanently. You see what I mean?
I don't think it would be a good place for you to live.
No.
But it does say the price of the average home in Shetland soared by 26.1% to 178,947, according to the Land Registry and the Office of National Statistics. That's 3 times as fast as in London, where the average home will now set you back. Imagine this, look, 484 grand, average price of a house in London. So for 465 in the Shetlands, you can buy this lovely stone villa, right? 7 bedrooms. What about that? That's nice, isn't it?
It's very nice, and you would admire it and look at it for 2 days and then wonder why you were living in a wasteland.
How about this? 245,000 for a 4-bedroom house with 3 acres.
Yeah.
You could get a horse, pony or something, get a dog.
Yeah, but I mean, in some parts of Great Britain...
I'm just trying to get you as far away as possible.
No. In some parts of Great Britain, you can. I mean, there's some parts of North Wales and Cumbria. You can buy farms for the price of a semi-detached house in London, without a shadow of a doubt. No problem at all. If you want to live on a farm in North Wales or Cumbria.
You sure?
And by the way, I would love to visit those places, Cumbria and North Wales. They're beautiful, but the detail of my association antennae is that I have to be in a more robust community than a farm in North Wales or Cumbria.
Well, like Stockbroker Belt, Surrey.
Yes, that's right.
Or really, you mean London, don't you?
Yeah, London, I suppose. Yeah.
I mean, you can't. I mean, it's very difficult once you've been in London to move out of it.
It is. I
mean,
agree.
My episode in the Boots down in Sussex the other day is proof of that. Because, you wouldn't get that in London.
No, you wouldn't, no.
Because the pharmacist wouldn't be allowed to have lunch. And if there was a pharmacist, there'd be more than one of them.
Yes.
And there wouldn't be anything so ridiculous as having to be unable to buy some pain-killing tablets.
Could be.
Which are over the counter.
Mind you, I think you will find that one thing I have noticed, actually, particularly in licensed establishments, is that they don't seem to have as many people behind the bar these days as they have had in the past.
Well, maybe that's another ruse to try and stop people drinking so quickly.
Well, I don't think it's to stop people drinking so quickly. I think it's to contain costs. I mean, I tell you what, some bars are going to be put out of business by this ridiculous business rates review, which is going to cripple a lot of businesses, not just bars. It's an outrage.
Funny enough, our friend from Edinburgh was I retweeted one of his tweets. You know, the guy who who went to his pub. He's involved. He's involved in a campaign against the business rates in Scotland.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Because he says it's putting a lot of businesses out.
It will.
And a lot of people out of work.
It will. It's disgusting.
Maybe we'll talk
it's disgraceful.
at some point.
Lower taxes, and then you'll have a vibrant economy. Put up taxes, you go bankrupt.
Okay, well, we shall see. Ask Porky coming up very soon.
Abolish all taxes.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill. On Blueberry Hill. When I found you, the moon stood still.
How do you like that?
That's Fats Domino.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Why? I think we played that because I made some reference to Fats Domino last night.
No, you made some reference to Fats Domino earlier.
No, to Domino Pizza I did, but not to Fats Domino.
No, you did.
Not the show tonight.
Yes, you did.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, we talked about it when we played Domino the song.
I don't think so.
Do you remember who that was by? Jessie J.
Jessie J, yeah.
And we had that conversation about Fats Domino.
Did we? Okay, yeah. Anyway, that's
John
nice
says this, can we not all chip
Mm.
together and get Porky a house in Shetland?
Yeah.
It's a bit desolate, like Porky's brain.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it? There's quite a big commuter traffic, isn't there, between sort of Glasgow, Edinburgh and Shetland all the time?
I
People
don't know if
flying
it's...
in that all the time.
I
There are.
I wouldn't say all the time.
I think there are.
I think there are certainly people who would be, for example, MSPs in the Scottish Parliament, who would possibly live in a place in
waste
Shetland.
of time job.
Well, a place in Shetland, and who might commute from, say, Monday to Friday, that kind of thing. But I don't think there's many people commuting on a daily basis.
Maybe. Listen, if you were at trouble at sea, talking about the Shetlands, because of course it's way offshore, isn't it?
It's closer to Norway than it is to Britain.
It is, yeah. If you were in trouble at sea, wouldn't it be nice when you suddenly heard, don't worry, the Royal Navy's on the way? Wouldn't that be great?
Well, that depends on how far away they were, I suppose.
Because I'm so critical of the way we've run down the Royal Navy.
Didn't I say to you the other day that we've got no ships actually currently in use because they're all being fixed up?
No, they're not actually. They were the Hunter-class submarines.
You said it was submarines.
Yeah,
but I think the ships are all out of commission as well.
No, they're not, honestly.
Well, there's only about 3 of them anyway.
Well, there is a surface fleet of about over 30, but most of them are, pretty old and ageing. But anyway, what I was going to say is, a racing yacht, had its mast torn off, and they were in terrible, terrible trouble. And they put out, the alert, the Mayday, and all that kind of stuff. And they were in terrible trouble until a merchant vessel turned up.
Yeah.
But this merchant vessel was not able to rescue them off the ship that was sinking because they simply didn't have the facilities.
And that wasn't the Royal Navy then, it was a merchant
No, it's
Navy.
a merchant vessel. But anyway, the merchant vessel managed to get a message. They said, don't worry, HMS Dragon is on its way. And the minute they heard that, they knew they were safe. HMS Dragon is one of the most advanced warships in the world.
Right.
It's a Royal Navy Type 45. And as soon as they were about 300 miles away, as soon as they heard that...
300 miles away?
Yeah.
Well, how long did it take them to get there?
Not long, about 10 hours, because they steam at about 30 knots,
Yeah, but that's a long time.
Well, it was the best
10
hope.
hours?
Yeah, it was the best hope for them.
So they were stranded in the middle of a sort of raging sea.
Floating around,
Well, no doubt getting sort of, blustered around, I would have thought.
Well, get knocked around indeed. But anyway, that was the best hope they had. And they said... the skipper here said the knowledge that the Navy was on the way boosted the morale of all of us, and we knew we could hang on.
Right.
And then the minute, of course, HMS Dragon arrived and got them all on board because they have all sorts of sophisticated
Aren't these
equipment.
the kind of people that you'd normally be attacking for wasting everybody's time?
Not at all.
And shouldn't be allowed to go out on the sea.
Not at all.
Because they have to be rescued all the time. Like the guy that you didn't like swimming across the Atlantic. The other guy...
he's an idiot.
Who's about to go off and try and make a solo trip across the Atlantic, who may need rescuing.
Complete.
Well, how are these people any better?
Well, because this is a properly crewed yacht.
Well,
it's called the Clyde Challenger.
But it doesn't matter because the result is the same. They have to be rescued at huge cost to the taxpayer.
No, it's not the same because it was knocked over by a rogue wave. The Clyde Challenger knocked on the side. The Type 45 destroyer was in fact diverted from 500 miles away for...
well, what if there was something important that it should have been doing? I just don't understand the difference between the two things.
They were out on an exercise. the ships go out on exercises.
No, I understand that, but I don't understand your different point of view depending on who it is that needs rescuing.
No, the Royal Navy's job is to protect the lives of British people, either to defend our shores, to deter aggressors, or to rescue Britons at sea.
No, I don't agree.
Well, it's
not about rescuing Britons at sea, particularly Britons who have put themselves out there because of their own self-aggrandisement, who want to break some kind of record. I just don't understand how these people are any different from the guy who tried to swim the Atlantic.
Well, some, half-baked
Why have you got it in for him?
Well, because if you try to swim the Atlantic, you're not going to do it, and should never have been allowed to start in the first place. If, however, you are legitimately a sports person who is the member of a crew of Clyde Challenger, which is a fully fledged racing yacht in a race, then of course you get on with your sport. And if something goes wrong at seas, considering we should have had one of the biggest navies in the world until it got dismantled by David Cameron's government, then you are entitled to the protection of the Royal Navy.
I see.
No doubt about it.
All right, well, that's hypocrisy to me.
Why?
Because anyone who is a member of the British nation who decides to go out at sea to do whatever it is that they do either should always be rescued or should never be rescued. You can't have both. You can't have a position that protects one lot and doesn't protect another.
Ridiculous and pathetic arguments. Honestly.
Why is it pathetic?
You don't think there's a difference between some crazy guy who thinks he can swim the Atlantic?
There's no difference in terms of the cost of it. There's no the difference in terms of how it affects the ability of the Merchant Navy or the Royal Navy to operate.
And professional sailors who take a boat out which is fully crewed and fully seaworthy but was hit by a rogue wave.
The effect is the same.
I find your attitude really bizarre and ridiculous sometimes.
I find that astonishing.
Yeah,
we'll just have to agree to disagree.
We will indeed.
What else you got?
What do you mean, what else
have you got?
What else have I got
what else
about
have you got to talk about?
What else have I got to talk about? You can talk about anything you like.
Well,
but I mean, when I try to tell you things that you are so dismissive about, I sometimes wonder
why I bother.
I'm not
dismissive, I'm just pointing out your hypocrisy, which you
know
don't
when you go to Spain...
Yeah.
The first time you went to Spain, did you see literally a huge cutout of a black bull?
Yes.
Right?
I did.
That is the symbol of Spain.
That is exactly what reminds me of Spain. In fact, the first time I went to Spain, it was down in the south of Spain, Malaga and Marbella and around there.
That's exactly where I went
And there's one by Soto Grande, I think, which looks exactly like that.
I landed in Alicante as a child. Well, I mean, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, so out the first foreign holiday abroad. The first thing you see is a huge black bull.
Correct.
The outline black shape of a bull on scaffolding, and you think, wow, this... now I know I'm in Spain.
And was it an advert for wine or was it an advert for
Well, I'm about to tell you because... Because the other thing is that really shocked me when I got to Spain the first time was that there were no green fields like there are in England.
Yeah, they're all brown.
Yeah, well, or they're not there at all. It's just scrubland. You come out the airport on a coach and you're heading, to your hotel on the coast. And I'm looking at it and it's the dawn's coming up because you've flown overnight from Manchester with your family on a propeller-driven aeroplane. And then I thought, where's all the fields? There's no fields in this country.
Well, that's one of the things you always notice in reverse when you come back from anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Including America, actually.
Yeah.
Nowhere is as green as Britain.
That's right.
Nowhere.
Especially when you're flying in over Windsor Castle or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, you see this big black bull, and I thought, wow, how exotic is all this, Anyway, it says here, for decades, the imposing silhouette of the black bulls have towered over motorways and on advertising boards right across Spain, okay? But now a legal battle has laid bare the determination of individual businesses to associate themselves with the animal. The Osborne Group, the sherry maker, has clashed with Jordi Noga, maker of the Bad Toro merchandise, including T-shirts, over the right to use the word toro or bull.
Yeah. Is that the wine that you can buy here? I think it's Toro wine, and it has a little plastic bull attached to the bottle.
Yes.
You know the one I mean?
Yes.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I quite like that wine, so I get that wine from time to time.
I don't like Spanish wine.
You don't like Spanish wine?
No, I don't like Spanish wine or cherry. No, I don't like Rioja at all. I don't know why. It's just too sweet for me. Anyway, it says Jordi Nogas, the Barcelona-based company that represents the Bad Toro brand, have argued that Toro was a generic name, not a brand name, and could not be owned by one company.
I thought Toro was what the bullfighters used to say. Toro, or at least what the crowd used to say.
Yeah, they do. It means bull, isn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is, there's now a dispute between two big commercial giants within Spain as to who owns the silhouette of the bull, which I think is incredible.
That is. So does that mean if you go down there now, they've had to take them all down until this dispute is settled?
No, it's while it's in abeyance, all the silhouettes of these big black bulls can stay there until they decide who's got ownership of the silhouette, and then the one that hasn't will have to take them down.
Yeah, right. Shocking stuff.
Quite simple.
Greg says this, 14 tops asking about on a yacht saved by taxpayers' navy.
Yeah.
Is Porky really the man of the people?
Yeah, of course I'm the man of the people, because that's something we should be proud of. You've got to remember, we're a seafaring nation.
Well, not really.
And a seafaring nation with the history and the heritage we have at the sea has to have an efficient Royal Navy.
Yes.
The problem is...
But we don't, do we?
We don't have a Royal Navy that's as efficient as it should be or used to be, because, of course, politicians don't see any votes in the defence budget, so they let the defence budget fritter away. They see votes in piling more and more money into the National Health Service and over-bloating the National Health Service, far too many people pushing pens in the National Health Service, middle management geeks who do nothing except clog up the system, whilst we should be employing more nurses and doctors and helping people who are getting older all the time.
It's not the 1 minute moan, you know this.
Well, no, but
Nigel says, making the Royal Navy service sound like the 4th emergency service at sea, Porky.
Well, it is.
And that's not what it is.
It is.
Well, it isn't really.
That's exactly what it is.
But anyway, we've got no more time to talk about the Navy because it is time for the Facebook Live edition of the Porky Quiz. Yeah. This is Talk Sport.
Good.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
Freedom for sport.
Can we kick it? Yes, we can.
Warn viewers, I suppose, of the horrendous nature of what they might be seeing.
Indeed.
But anyway, as ever, we've got a lot of questions, and we need to get to them as quickly as we possibly can.
Let's get through them as soon as we can.
We'll try and be as informative and as brief as we possibly can be. Stephen says this, as he is such a big fan of trickle-down economics, when are we likely to share the gluttony of Postman Pork?
Well, I don't know what you mean by the gluttony of Postman Pork. Postman Pork, of course, is the new feature here. People can write to me at TalkSport, 18 Hatfields, London, SC1 8DJ, and I will respond to those letters. But I do not ask for and I do not sanction presents of any kind. If you want to send me something to look at, I will.
All right. Zach says this, why do you always feel the need to shout on the radio?
I don't shout on the radio, and I want to emphasise a point. I just raise my voice a little bit to indicate to you the severity and the importance of the issue that I'm concentrating on at the time.
I see. One from Jerry says, Porky, what language do animals think in, and do you think we should try more to communicate with them?
I think the communication with animals is one of the great mysteries of life. I always like to think to myself, what is that animal thinking when I'm talking to it? I'm thinking, is the animal thinking this guy's a jerk? Is the animal thinking, I cannot understand what he's saying? Or is the animal thinking, this is the way the animal world has to go, follow human behaviour?
Nick says this, I've got family members I don't really like.
Right.
Are expecting invitations to my wedding. How do I deal with these family members?
Well, you've got to be hard-faced about it and just not invite them. I've got to the age now where I don't tolerate people who either upset me, who have upset me in the past, who I feel are a negative presence, or who will unbalance the rest of my guests by their presence. If they happen to be a member of my family and I don't like them, I don't get on with them, they get the hook.
We are doing this live on Facebook for those of you who just joined us. And here's a question from Facebook from Maxwell. Can you tell me a couple of far-fetched, random, cheap cities in Eastern Europe, possibly, or anywhere else in Europe, to spend a few nights on the Bladderation Trail, as me and a few mates are travelling to Europe from Perth in June?
Okay.
That's Perth in Australia.
Perth in Australia. I'm told the best place to go for value for money and really nice and good people and great wine and food and all that and a bit of life is Budapest in Hungary. I'm told it's a terrific city. And
you haven't been there?
I haven't been there,
Why don't you recommend it then?
Well, I can only recommend it because I take note of people who have been there and talk to me about it. They know I'm a world traveller anyway.
Is that right? Yeah.
And they're always recommending new places to me. Budapest, I can tell you that Krakow in Poland is great, but very popular. It's the same now with a lot of the cities like Prague. But Budapest, I'm telling you, is one you should have a look at. Or
I'm telling you.
Or Santorini in Greece, which apparently is excellent.
Well, that's where you're going this summer.
And I'm going there in the summer, yeah.
Yeah, taking the bridal suite, I understand.
Indeed. Yeah.
Here's one from TMF. It's almost impossible to sack Ranieri after last season. Does it need to happen, or for him to walk away to save Leicester?
Well, Ranieri should have been sacked last summer. After Leicester won the Premier League, it was absolutely obvious that Leicester then should have used the winning of the Premier League as a launch pad to catapult themselves into a new spatial awareness place, like a whole new galaxy. And the only way to do that would have been to have got an experienced, former winner of European trophies.
Well, yeah, but you've said all
boss.
that.
Yeah.
We must move on. Pierre says, Dear Porky, I'm getting loads of grief because I'm pro-Trump. How do I deal with this?
Well, you've got to stick to your own beliefs. If you're pro-Trump, it must be because you believe in the values of the man and that you can see that his policies will lead to an eventual conclusion to improve things in the world. Stick by your beliefs, whatever they are.
Stuart says, my 10-year-old son is having nightmares. He's frightened of something called burble D's or burble dumb. How do I get him to go to sleep?
Well, just tell him that they don't exist, that they are a combination of words for... what's the devil called?
Hey?
Beelzebub, is it?
No, Beelzebub.
Beelzebub, that's right. It's Beelzebub. Don't worry about it. It only happens in Shakespeare plays. Shakespeare hasn't written a play for 500 years. It won't happen again.
Harvey says this, Dear Porky, do I save money as I'm a student or blow it all on a holiday? He says he's in Stockbroker Belt. Oh, sorry, he's in the Stockbroker Belt half of North Harrogate.
Oh, North Harrogate. Yeah, Harrogate's a good place, and got some nice houses there. A lot of footballers from Leeds United live there. What I used to do was I used to blow all the money from my student grants in the first couple of weeks on drink and trying to impress young ladies, women. And then I got a job in a pub working 2 nights a week as a barman to fund me through the rest of the term. I recommend that approach.
Here's one from Lee. He says, Does it annoy you that Companies House website discloses so much personal information about people? Would you censor it?
Well, no, I wouldn't actually, because that's a protection for shareholders in companies. You know, you've got to know what's happening to the companies in which you're investing. We have a very, very open system in this country. I don't object to it at all. MG and I have a company. We all have individual companies. It's a rule that you have to give the details to Companies House and show profit or loss. It's a good thing.
Yeah, but they have to publish personal addresses as well, which is not necessarily something.
You give them an address for a company, and people have got to be able to know where to go to if they've got a problem.
John says this, will your pork scratchings be available in time for next Valentine's Day? I was at a loss as to what to buy the old ball and chain this year.
Yes, they will. The Porky Pork scratchings are being launched at Harry's Bar, which is a very, very exclusive establishment in Wigan, on Friday.
Very exclusive.
What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing at an exclusive establishment in Wigan.
Oh, yeah, you see. It's another snob, you know, London.
Nothing snobby about that.
Southern snob, metropolitan elite.
That's where you live.
On March the 10th at 5:30, it'll be a fantastic party, and they will be widely available after that.
OK. Porkmeister,
I'll bring a few packets back, by the way.
Sorry, this is from Danny. Porky, how long are you planning on keeping that pizza in your freezer?
Well, generally speaking, a couple of weeks, I suppose, because you don't eat pizza every day, do you, for 2 weeks?
Well, you do if you've got that much in the freezer.
Well, no, it's a late-night snack for when you sort of get home, when we've been working here. It's sometimes a midday snack. It's sometimes a weekend thing with a bottle of wine. It won't last more than 2 weeks.
Here's one from Vic. What will become of the paper round once all newspapers move online?
I did answer this, actually, the other night, and what will happen is that people who are paper boys now, who've earned their living traditionally by slinging a bag around their shoulder and taking paper to stick them to a letterbox, will become delivery operators on bikes, which can access areas that cars and motorbikes can't, for companies like Amazon and companies that trade on the internet.
And Tony says,
without a shadow of a doubt.
Porky, can you please speak in German more often on your show? It cracks me right up. Hashtag Gruppensex.
Well, Gruppensex, benden over. That was just a bit of a laugh the other night. But I mean, the words in German, which I like, because German's a very dramatic language, are things like Donner und Blitzen, Schweinhund, Schnell.
Here's one from David. It says, how would you rate Gary Stevens and Trevor Stevens' contribution to Everton? Both excellent for my club, Rangers.
Well, they went to Rangers, didn't they, after Everton? And they were both brilliant. Trevor Stevens was a brilliant midfield player who helped win us the league in 85 when we turned over Tottenham 2-1 at Tottenham in a night game, and he scored the second goal. Gary Stevens, best right back, I think, of the 80s, in a blue and white shirt. They're both excellent.
How about this from Neil? Is it a good idea to let my dog swim in the river?
Well, I don't see any reason why not. I mean, you've got a dog, Mike. You say your dog bounds into the sea, yeah?
He goes into the sea. I'm not sure about a river, though, because that's a bit of a different kettle of fish, if you don't mind me saying so.
I don't know the difference. I do know that when I get down on the coast, I do often see dogs bounding into the waves.
Yeah.
They seem to like water quite a lot, you know, South Sea and round there.
They do.
I have seen dogs go into a river, and I remember on one occasion, a black Labrador, it seemed to have trouble getting out. I think that's the only problem with rivers. They're not as easy to get out of.
Well, they can have very long, very fast tides as well.
Yeah. I saw a dog being swept away once, honestly, and a woman owner running down the embankment, you know, shouting, my doggy, my doggy.
Which is Italian.
No, she was Scottish.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Martin says this on Facebook. I asked Porky 2 weeks ago how to find my girlfriend's ring size, and he told me to put her finger in a cake.
Yes.
What a plank. I cannot do what MG said, as she has no other rings.
Yes.
Help. We are going to Cancun soon. At this rate, she'll be having a Haribo jelly sweet ring.
Yes.
So is there any other sort of answer to this problem?
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. Be romantic and put your fingers, entwine your fingers into your girlfriend or wife's fingers, okay, and then just use your blinking common sense, mate, to get a ring. If you don't want to take my advice about, getting a mould of her hand in the top of a soft Victoria sponge cake, then that's your problem, not mine.
Could he not do something with like a sort of one of those pieces of wire that you could twist around?
No, because that's too obvious. He wanted to do it surreptitiously.
When she's asleep, maybe.
Ah, rubbish.
Okay. Here's one from JPK. Will Koeman take a year out before moving to Barcelona, or will he go this summer?
Koeman's not going to Barcelona, and I refuse to be drawn on any further. Ronald Koeman will still be able to manage her in 4 years' time.
Jonathan says, will you ever be 100% fit and well again in your lifetime?
No, not unless I get a magic injection into my heart, because at the moment only 1/3 of it works, but I have read of experiments in which, what's that stuff you take from the spine again? And,
Stem cells?
Stem cells can be injected directly into the heart tissue to make it as good as new again. I hope that will happen to me sometime.
Bill says
providing I don't deprive it of anybody else of it.
And Bill says this, I'm doing a London Marathon this year for Victor, a charity that helps blind and partially sighted children.
Yes.
Any chance of a signed DVD of the two mics to put towards my auction to raise funds towards my total?
Without a shadow of a doubt, that'd be a pleasure. In fact, only this evening I did transfer a consignment of our latest DVDs from the boot of my sport Merc into your Jaguar Chelsea tractor, didn't I?
It's not a Chelsea tractor. It is a sports performance vehicle. Thank you very much indeed. Here's one from somebody called Made in London. Off to Liverpool with my wife for 2 days.
Yeah.
What must-dos would you recommend?
To Liverpool, do you say?
Yes.
Well, there's plenty to do in Liverpool. Get down the Albert Dock there, the Docklands, and there's a number of really nice bars and restaurants and hotels there. Get to Matthew Street, please. That's Beetle Street. And round the corner you got the Hard Day's Night Hotel, which, if you're a Beatles fan, is just magnificent. And then there's plenty more to do in Liverpool. Remember, it's full of museums. The Walker Art Gallery. Get down to the Liver Building for a bit of history. And, of course, if you're a sports fan, just get into a black cab and ask for a tour of Anfield and Goodison and whip back into town. It only costs you £10.
Finally, a Valentine's question, because Valentine's Day has been and gone. He says, flowers on Valentine's Day are double the usual price, so I was going to wait until later today to buy them. Am I being a skinflint, like the missus says, or am I just being sensible?
No, complete skinflint. If you want to do it romantically, you've got to do it the best. The flowers have got to be fresh and nice and dripping with water from having just been watered in the florist and presented beautifully in a bouquet.
No, dripping with water, sure.
Yes, I like that. It means they're fresh and they've been kept fresh and all that kind of stuff. And you present them, with a flourish and all that kind of stuff. And it's got to be roses on Valentine's Day with a couple of bottles of Prosecco and perhaps a box of Ferrero Rocher.
Ferrero Rocher, because the ambassador has such good taste.
Exactly.
That was Ask Porky.
Okay.
It's been live on Facebook, and of course, it will remain there. For those of you who missed it, you can watch it later on throughout the course of the day, and it will be there for as long as you would like it. This is TalkSport.
And I hope we pass the audition.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
Got shades on your eyes and your heels so high that you can't even have a good time.
Was that the singer, Domino?
No, Domino's not a singer. That was Fats Domino you're thinking of.
No, I wasn't thinking of Fats Domino. Who was the singer?
Jessie J.
Jessie J.
Yeah.
Now, I know her, I think.
Yeah.
Did she go bald? No, did she shave all her hair off?
She did, yeah.
She said, yes.
Price Tag. You know that song?
No, I don't, actually.
About the price tag, ain't about the cha-ching, ain't about the ba-bling, wanna make the world dance. Forget about the price tag. Okay, we need to.
Now, lots of comments on our Facebook Live production that we
Yes.
just put out there. It is still there,
What's
of
the
course, if you
verdict?
want to go
What's
and
the
look at
verdict?
it. Watching you on Facebook makes me realise how lifelike MG's son's Lego model really was.
Yes.
Remember that Lego model that he did of us?
Indeed, I do, yeah.
So Steve says that's very, very good.
Excellent.
One from John, who says, I hope Porky's okay. That yawn he gave while still on camera at the end of Ask Porky was the sound of a weary old man.
No.
That's a bit harsh.
No, that's a bit harsh.
Leon says, great show again, boys. Thanks. Keep up the good work. The only problem, MG looks at the screen it's as though he is watching you.
Yes.
Scary.
What?
I don't know what he means.
Sorry, yeah, you can have a scary look about you. There's no
Scary?
doubt about it. Yeah,
I don't think so.
Are they saying you're scary, not me?
Yeah, they're saying I look scary.
Yeah,
you
do.
I look scary.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know why he says that.
do,
And one
yeah.
from Rob, who says, I like how Porky puts his headphones on front of his lead.
Yes.
The Mark Knopfler of the talk world.
Mark Knopfler, do you mean?
Knopfler.
Knopfler, yeah.
Knopfler, the P
Sorry,
is silent, isn't
what
it?
am I supposed to do?
Well, I think he's talking about the way the lead goes down in the front,
Yeah.
which
Where's
is
it
what Mark
supposed to go?
Knopfler does.
Yeah?
Well, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I'm not an
Anyway,
expert
thank
on
you for your
these things.
comment. That's fine, yeah. That's all right, yeah, I accept all that.
Ben
yeah.
says, "Where is the link for Facebook Live?" He said he laughed very much. I can't read that out. A post report last Friday.
Yes.
So I want to catch this in Singapore. Well, just go onto the Two Mics Facebook page and you'll be able to re-watch it. But
Yes.
generally speaking, that's where it will be.
Yes, that's right.
I'm sorry I didn't put a link out on Twitter. I probably should have done that. But I
Exactly.
forgot. But I will do that now.
Exactly.
So that if anybody did miss it and wants
Yeah.
to watch it later, they can.
They can indeed, yes,
Yeah.
OK, yes, that's great. Making the Royal Navy sound like the 4th Emergency Service at Sea.
I read that one out already.
Nigel, you read that one already,
Yeah, I
have
did.
you?
Yeah, you weren't listening.
Yeah, I probably was, but I thought it was worth reading again because
Okay.
I actually believe that that's what they should be, yeah.
Yeah, but they can't be, particularly now as they are so depleted in their numbers that they have really, really no, no capacity to operate as the fourth emergency service. You know what I mean?
What you've got to do is you've got to embarrass the politicians into rethinking their policy on it because
But as ever,
it's disgraceful.
As ever, they're going to be saying, "Well, where's the money going to come from?"
Yeah, well,
You know,
the
it's
money
hard enough
the
for
money
them to
comes
get the
from
money.
saving it elsewhere. You know, we all know about the overseas aid bill, and it's a very controversial one because some will say, "But that stops problems happening in the rest of the world, which then descend upon our head, so to speak."
Yeah.
Well, it's a point of view that you've got to take on it
That's
as
true.
to how much we spend and how much we don't.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yes.
Now, Porky Vision coming up tomorrow night. I've had a few complaints about Porky Vision. It's turned into a sort of a romp fest where there's anything ever described as some kind of sexual activity.
Well,
And people have noticed that you've become a bit obsessed with it.
no, I'm not obsessed with
Is
it
it
at all.
possible to have a Porky Vision without any Rogerisation in it?
Well, maybe, but it wouldn't be very interesting, would it?
Well, it might
Compared to one that's got Rogerisation.
It might be. I mean, I don't
You know?
read when I read TV reviews. They don't
Yes.
all have rampant sort of talk about sex going on all the time.
Yeah, but I what I do is I review things people are interested in. As it happens, I haven't seen very much Rogerisation this week at all.
Is that right?
So it could well be it'll be a Rogerisation or largely Rogerisation-free Porky Vision, which is when? Is that tomorrow night?
It is tomorrow
night, yeah.
Well,
I've
there's
seen-
lots of stuff around today on Prue Leith, who
Leith,
people
yeah.
are suggesting
Yeah.
is a bit of a racy character, and she's going to be on the Bake Off, isn't she, now, instead of Mary Berry?
I think do you know what? I think that was revealed in a Sunday newspaper. It's now been picked up
Yes,
by...
but people are now writing lots of things about what she's done before.
Yeah, that's right,
And
yeah.
the fact that she's kind of what you might regard as,
Been a bit racy.
a racy person.
Yes. Well,
I'm
nothing
not
wrong,
sure.
nothing wrong with having a racy past. The only people who argue about a racy past are those who haven't had one themselves. You understand me?
Talking of that, have you seen this headline in one of the papers called Buff Justice?
Buff.
A school head claims her career was ended early after she was outed as a naturist.
Yeah, well,
And here's a picture of her.
I mean, the thing is, she looks so revolting without clothes on, in the sense that she's an overweight woman with a lot of flab
very
hanging off her bones. And frankly, that's a frightening thought.
A frightening thought.
Well, it's a frightening thought that a woman like that, who doesn't mind walking around naked against the normal rules of society, is in charge of your children.
This woman says, I've always kept my private life private,
Yeah.
apart from the fact that she appears on a television show called The Great British Skinny Dip,
Yeah.
which was shown last night, apparently.
Absolutely
Well,
disgraceful.
if you want to keep your private life quiet as a
Yeah.
naturist, surely you wouldn't go on a television programme
Well,
to
exactly.
boast about it, would you?
Exactly. That's absolutely ridiculous, honestly. I don't know why we even tolerate that sort of behaviour in
Well,
society.
apparently Christine now spends spare time helping the British Naturism campaign to recruit people.
Yeah.
And the documentary that was on, which you might be able to watch, on Watch Again, is meant to attract people to a public skinny dip, which is up in the northeast of England.
Well, I don't want to watch a programme like that. I don't want to be part of a movement like that. And quite frankly, I don't know why we tolerate it. People who want to behave like that should do it behind closed walls or closed fences or closed something. Go and do it. Find an island off the Shetlands or something and go and do it there, because it's offensive to most of us who live a normal life where people actually put clothes on because they're civilised.
I suppose if you
not
were
uncivilised.
had a child at a school, you wouldn't particularly be happy about the teachers being
Yeah, of course you
naturalists,
would.
would you?
Good, it's disgraceful. Now, listen. Part of your visage, part of your
My
character
visage,
is
yeah.
your glasses, right?
My glasses, yeah.
Yes,
But you
yes.
see, you say that, but for me, that's a relatively recent thing.
Yeah, okay.
Because I've only really started wearing these type of glasses. I only started wearing glasses at all.
Why did
in my 40s.
Why did you choose the sort of thicker lenses
rather
than?
I quite like them.
Because my glasses have no frames. I have no frames on my glasses.
Right.
Because I don't like frames.
Well, you've got metal frames, haven't you?
Well, they've got no frame. If
No
you see, it's
frame at all?
just a link in the middle between two bits of glass,
yeah.
and then the wings, of
Yes.
course, to keep them on the ears.
Yes.
But I've got no frames.
No.
Now, you've got very distinctive frames.
Yes.
I would say they are Eric Morecambe type frames.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really looking to do the Eric Morecambe look.
Or what's the other one? Elvis Costello, was it?
Elvis Costello did, I suppose so.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot of people that wear these kind of
bit of
glasses
Chris
now.
Evans.
Yeah,
Chris
but
Evans.
I wore these a long time before anybody else did.
Just
I
to-
mean, I would say that I think my first pair of glasses I bought when I was about 45.
Yes.
Because that was when my eyes started to
Yes,
go. Because up
yes.
to then they'd been pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I sort of, I suppose experimented with lots of different kinds. And I saw these one time when I went to need to get new glasses. They're
Yes.
Ray-Bans, and I wear
Yes.
Ray-Ban sunglasses.
Right.
And I thought, well, if I could replicate the sunglass frame with ordinary glasses, that might be quite nice.
And you've got a pair of these sunglasses, haven't you? 'Cause
I
you
have.
wear those on stage sometimes when
I
you do
do.
live shows.
And they're prescription sunglasses as well, so I can still see
Yeah,
with them.
Yeah. I didn't wear glasses for a long time when I was a teenager. 'Cause
When
I
did you
thought-
first wear them then?
Well, when I was about 22 or 23, because I thought only sissies wore glasses, and
What?
I thought I'd become less appealing to women.
But you must not be able to see, though.
Well, I did have a bit of short-sightedness. In fact, I only just passed my driving test because I could only just see.
Well,
the,
you shouldn't have been
yeah.
able to drive if you couldn't see properly.
Well, I could just about see the, the
no wonder you
number
went over
plates
the
of car.
roundabout.
Yeah, well, that's the problem, yeah. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this is that I've got some good news for you.
Oh, good.
And that is that, and I found this out from one of my health journals.
Yeah.
Optical journal, actually.
Optical journal.
That in future you will only ever need one pair of glasses for life.
Right.
Because as your eyes change, as they get either shorter sighted, longer sighted.
Well, my eyes have definitely got worse since I started wearing glasses.
Okay, well, what will happen is the glasses will respond to them in future.
Uh-huh.
The sort of glass that will be made in future, at the moment it's called varifocals, because you can have three different
That's what these
bits
are.
of glass. Vary?
That's what these are.
Three lots
Yeah,
of...
they're three. They're one. The
Yeah.
bottom part is for reading.
Yeah.
The middle part is for sort of distance, I suppose.
Yes.
Because what I found was sitting here, if I was wearing reading glasses, I can't read the television.
That's right, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But what's going to happen in the future is this. The glasses use liquid. The glasses of the future will change as your eyes do, and that's because minutely between two lenses will be liquid.
Uh-huh.
And the glasses will use liquid-based lenses that can change curvature.
What?
It can change the curvature of your glasses.
That sounds complicated.
To match your eyes.
Uh-huh.
And the first pair of glasses you ever buy will be the last pair of glasses you'll never ever need to buy.
Well, I bet you that doesn't turn out to be true because, I mean, you lose glasses, don't you? You break glasses.
Yep.
I had a pair of sunglasses stolen by a seagull, as you know.
Yes.
I've lost glasses. You've left them places. I once had a pair that fell out of a jacket pocket of mine.
Yeah.
So I used to keep the glasses in my top, pocket.
Yes.
And when I put my jacket on, they went flying across the room. And it was a very dark room, and I never found them again.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you must have lost a pair of glasses, haven't you?
I've trodden on them and all sorts of things.
So
it's a
you'll
problem.
need
But what
more
I'm
than
saying
one pair of
is,
glasses.
Yeah, but you will not need to go for regular checkups to test your sight because your glasses will have adjusted to it.
Uh-huh.
It says that there will even be highly expensive glasses where the lenses are automatically reshaped using tiny electric motors in the frame themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
And their curvature changes dynamically depending on what you're looking at. So when your eyeball goes to one side of your glass, and a tiny electric motor in the lens will tilt the lens in your glasses to make sure that you can access it. You see what I mean?
Do you not think that people in the future will be more inclined to kind of have laser eye surgery and then just nobody will need glasses?
No,
anymore?
I
They'll
would
become
never
thing of
have
the
a
past.
laser beam in my eye
No?
under any circumstances
Are you sure?
whatsoever. Never, never, never. I don't care if it's a 1 in 10 million chance. I'm not going to be that 1 in 10 million to have my eyes burnt by a laser. It says it will.
That would be unlucky.
It will eradicate the need for reading glasses altogether. Most people who get reading glasses have to put them on and take them off all the time. But Carlos Mastrangelo from the University of Utah said you will not have to do that anymore in the future.
Okay.
That man's an expert.
Well, he may well be.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk to one of these experts one of these days. Tomorrow we've got Sandra Lee coming on from Australia.
Indeed.
This is Talk Sport.
Don't forget to come back tomorrow for another sparkling, as fizzy as a bottle of champagne podcast from the two mics. I would drink large gin and tonics, or lunchtime, maybe 3 or 4.
Right.
just to,
That'll be 6 units then.
Yeah, 8, maybe 8 units.
8 units.
Just to laugh in the face of these tyrants,
Oh,
okay?
yeah. Tyrants.
These social tyrants.
Uh-huh.
I would then chew a bit of chewing gum on the way back to the office.
Uh-huh.
So that when I got back into the office, because
Yeah.
4 large gin and tonics don't affect me at all.
Really?
No. I
Why
would
did you drink them then?
Sorry?
Why did you drink them?
Well, they give me inner warmth, but there is no outer recognition of the inner warmth. Do you know what I mean?
What, so nobody knows your bladder?
No, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's writhing. He's writhing around on the floor like that.
Yeah.
At Pyon-gyan International Airport.
Why are you making all these noises?
Well, just to give a bit of background.
I
to
can't
our
imagine what
listeners.
Pyon-gyan International
And-
Airport is like. I imagine it's very
I
quiet.
can't
actually.
either. Yeah, I should think it is.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM.
A terrific performance.
Turn of pace and eye for goal.
Shout about it.
Talk Sport.